Maybe that'll work too, I guess. Nice and clean and soft. The outside can be cleaned at any other time. Yeah, finally finished. Where's the other one? Well, shit. Oh, there it is. Just haven't got the ambition to do anything.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Food Theory, the show that's doing things a little bit different. See, it's summer, and one of the things that I literally have always struggled with is the communal barbecue in apartment buildings. I've been in apartment buildings my entire adult life. I have never been able to approach people while at a barbecue and ask them, hey, are you almost done with that treat? But it's summer, which means really it means burgers and hot dogs. So if I can't work up the courage to use the grills downstairs and I can't have one on my balcony because of fire codes or whatever, and the stove just doesn't bring the same results, there's logically only one solution.
10 things are going on the stairs tonight.
You heard that right. Those little 4th of July sparklers you give your little cousin Timmy, I'm going to use them to cook actual burgers and hot dogs that I plan on eating for now. Also, I can avoid the most basic of human interaction. But it's one thing to say you'll try and eat barbecue with sparklers. It's another to actually do it. So today what I'm going to be doing is cooking burgers and cooking hot dogs. Two classic traditional summer barbecue foods. But here's the twist. I'm only going to be using sparklers. Now, these babies burn between 1800 and 2000 degrees Fahrenheit. So they should be enough to cook these. I might just need a few more. Now, funny story, I Instacarted all of this. And in the Instacart order, I actually put 14 packages of this. And the Instacart person showed up yesterday with all the bags. And they were like, hey, I did you a solid. I noticed that you made a typo and put a 1 in front of the 4 packages. So like you put 14. No sane person would want that. So I only got you the 4 that you wanted. Again, I'm too nervous to ask about the grill. I was like, oh, thanks. But inside I was like, now I have to go and buy like 12 more packages of sparklers. So we're about to go and try and find more sparklers. And you know what? It's fun because that's what Food Theory is all about. It's about things not going my way when I want them to.
I think you can put in a note saying, you know, have the note say, no, that's not a typo. I did ask for 14 packages. Please don't judge me.
Don't waste your money on cheap dirt. Get the real deal with Miracle-Gro, packed with essential nutrients to grow strong, healthy roots. Miracle-Gro garden soil is your secret sauce for a healthy, beautiful garden. Miracle-Gro, no better way to grow.
If I just slop it on thick enough, it's gonna be good, right?
And rolling with the punches. So let's go. And so I was off to Publix, since Party City went the way of the dodo. R.I.P. I'll miss you. Thankfully, 4th of July was still a few weeks away when I was filming this, so surely all of the sparklers wouldn't be sold out already, right? Oh no, I think they actually may have gotten all of the sparklers when I asked them to. Target it is, I guess. Okay, let's go. You know what? Publix is too expensive anyway. And they didn't have a 4th of July fireworks display at the front of the store. Tisk, tisk, Publix. Tisk, tisk. Thankfully, Target is always there for me when I need it most. Okay, so we're at Target. Let's hope they have sparklers. Because if not, I don't even know. I don't even know what we're gonna do. And hey, I don't want to hear any of you in the comments be like, you're too afraid to go ask your neighbors to use your grill, but you'll go into Target with a mic and camera crew. That's different because, hey look, I found the sparklers. The only question is, how many do do I buy?
There's 30 in each of these. Let's make it an even 300, shall we? Hi, I'm normal. Oh, look, we can actually use self-checkout because it's 10 items or less. I really hope there's no limit to how many sparklers. Son of- So apparently you can't get sparklers through the self-checkout. I have to show that I'm not an adolescent.
Okay,
21.
Ah, bueno, perfecto. Acabo de cumplir 22.
You can legally smoke in this country, but you can't buy sparklers. How does that work? Hey, Santi, what do you do for a living? I go to Target and I buy 300 sparklers on a Wednesday at 11 a.m. Aren't you proud of me, Mom and Dad? They're not, by the way, it's a spoiler.
But, parental approval of my life choices aside, sparklers acquired.
The looks I got from the employees at Target when they saw me just scanning sparkler after sparkler after sparkler, which, by the way, you have to be 21 for. Why do you have to be 21 to have fun with a children's toy? Although it does say TNT, which I really hope is just a naming convention and not actual dynamite.
Too late now! Like some 41, I am in. Time to bring these
Well,
fireworks,
I'm
or should I say,
in
cooking utensils home with me and see if I can make magic and lunch happen. So,
That was so loud. We got sparklers. We're gonna go downstairs and we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna see what the
Don't
best way
splash.
to not use a grill is. That is what we're testing here. It's not really a test, honestly. Let's be real. I'm lighting stuff on fire and seeing if I can cook hot dogs with it. When it comes to the patties, listen, you're going on this adventure with me. I don't know what I'm doing. As long as I don't have to go downstairs and ask for a grill, that's all we care about. So, let's do this.
and so I made my way downstairs, far away from the communal grills and the police, so I could go about making a fire meal. Yeah, well, not fire. Well, yes, fire, but not out of control fire. Just moderately out of control fire.
So we are nestled into our little corner here. We got the lovely dumpster to my left and a bunch of cars driving by. I have never seen this many cars driving by in this back road of my building. As long as they don't call the cops. I mean, this isn't illegal. Nothing we're doing is technically illegal. And technically legal is the best way. We're definitely gonna have to cut that. Here's the thing. I really think the best way to do this is just to impale a hot dog with a sparkler and see what happens. So we're gonna have to do it with one first.
I just bought brand new paint. Where are you?
This is my life. Okay, getting it to go all the way through is gonna be difficult.
Yep. There we
It's
go.
so wet. Fun fact, I was pre-med in college. I was preparing to be a doctor. This is what I'm doing now. That's close enough. Should I have gotten gloves for this? Probably. Oh, this is gonna be damn near impossible. Hold on, I'm gonna have to turn my back to y'all for a second. Oh, there it is. Yeah, the wind's gonna make this very hard. BRB.
And so I decided, why don't I huddle in the dumpster? That should block me from the wind. Where did my life go wrong?
Come on. Come on. I should have gotten one of those like lighters that don't care about the wind. But you know what? My middle name is Perseverance. It's actually not Tapudo. So there's a little bit of lore. I swear to God, if this just died on me. Why can't things ever go according to plan? Ever. He says, waving a hot dog in the air like a madman.
That's it, wind. You're going on my mortal enemies list. Listen to me. I'm yelling at the wind. Am I really getting that old? Maybe I should have just asked my neighbors to borrow the grill. Is what I would have said if I wasn't just steady.
Oh, okay. It's going. It's not sparkling so much. It's getting in there. Oh my god. Oh my god, it's still going. It's like sizzling inside. I'm not gonna put this near my face in case it explodes. Okay, first of all, it started smelling delicious. So it was kind of working. I'm gonna see if I can take this out and like see if we can. Okay. It didn't go deep enough. This is so disgusting. YouTube is really about not having any dignity. Okay, it didn't go nearly as far as I thought it did.
That's what she said.
It only went like maybe half an inch down. It smells good though. Like the part that got cooked doesn't smell bad. Legit. Am I going to eat it? Definitely not cooked. Definitely not cooked. Luckily, we have a. Oh, I think I got some of the char. Oh, that tasted horribly.
I hope this was already painfully obvious, but do not try this at home. Or out back behind your home next to the dumpster. It's not fun. You see, all these chemicals, yeah, they're inside me now. And even after trying to shove 3 sparklers in that wiener, it was dawning on me that perhaps I needed to change up my strategy.
Alright, so we have 5 sparklers. Let's see what happens when I light all 5 and we just kind of run it along the sausage. I think this will be good. You'll see. Stop doubting me. Okay, what happens Wait, bring the camera, bring the phone. This is extremely unsafe. Yeah. I'd be lying if I said this didn't smell amazing right now. Look at this char. We got a nice, beautiful char on the top side. Sure, we had to put 5 of these to one side just to cook it a little bit. But like, oh, that is a good smelling sausage. That's exactly what I want to smell. It reminds me of summer. Let's see if we can toast a bun. Look at that. Oh, look at that. We're getting a nice char on the inside. Is it a little burn?
A little burnt.
We're getting that nice barbecue sear.
Sure, it looks like a nice, albeit slightly burned toasted bun, but how does it taste?
No, the bread you really taste the chemicals in the bread. But listen, we got the char, we got the sear, the char. I would call that a success. As much of a success as we can get. Let's go to the bar.
The Ferrero Rocher chocolate bar. Crunchy hazelnuts, smooth chocolate, creamy
The
filling.
goal is to put 10 things on that stairs
Any moment
before I go to
worth
bed tonight.
celebrating. Ferrero Rocher.
There we go.
You hear that? That's the sound of me huffing some major copium. That hot dog was nasty. It probably would have just tasted better had I made it on the grill, but that's not a risk I'm willing to take today. But now we move on to the burger. And while a little undercooked hot dog is fine since they're pre-cooked, a burger is a whole nother animal. Literal.
So, the first thing I'm going to do, just as a test, is our technique of just putting them directly on top. I'm going to start with 10 on top and see what that gets us. So, the goal here is to get the top and the bottom charred, nice, and cooked. The inside is going to have to be cooked. And we're not going to stop until the inside is cooked. We have 300 frickin' sparklers, all right? We're going to use them all if we need to.
One all be with 10 sparklers on top coming right up.
I promise you, there is fire under here. Yes! Alright, we gotta move fast. Putting it right on top. Oh, yeah. Oh, smell that. Nice and chemically with a little bit of beef. It smells like a McDonald's kitchen, really, if you think
just
about
gonna keep it
I also
simple
think
with
I'm
solid black.
Using the sparklers to the beef patty. Oh, no! All of our hard work! Okay, it's not the worst thing that could have happened. Is it the best thing that could have happened? No. But it is very hot.
Looks cute.
We need more sparklers. I'm not gonna do this on the plastic anymore though, because I'm gonna have to put sparklers down. We will have to do this on the floor, which makes this even less edible. But I think we can throw that out the window.
You could just use a glass.
Right here. So, I don't even think we can use the aluminum foil, because these things burn at 1800 Fahrenheit. I think that's enough to actually melt. I think aluminum foil is only safe to yeah, I think this is only safe to a couple hundred degrees, because who would take a live flame, multiple live flames to aluminum foil? So, appetizing. Let's do this. We're gonna put 20 on the bottom and 20 on top and see what that gets us. Now, these burn exceptionally fast, which is why we need to up them numbers, all right? Yeah, we're gonna do a little lateral lattice, whatever those are called. I don't do math or construction of any sort. I have no practical skills, if you can tell. So we got 20 all down here. Let's see what this gets us, shall we? Come on, there we go. They're lighting, it's happening. We see smoke for a barbecue. Why do you have to do it yourself? Let's go, look at this, it's working. Oh, I should not be breathing that in.
I wonder if I can get K-pop Demon Hunter's music on this without getting my live stream shut down.
Okay, wait.
It's a Netflix. Netflix is
You saw that? You'd be
50-50 with their music.
Oh my god, you did it. Now, when you see this side and you see the inside, you see that it's completely raw. But here's the good part about this. We're not that far off. The inside is completely raw. Do not get me wrong. But the outside has a nice char to it. I think if we do more, we might be able to do this.
Okay.
That was one patty down. That was 40
That
sparklers.
is-
I think we need to
Now,
go
tang it.
40 on the
No.
bottom, 40 on the top for 80 sparklers. So, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna light from the bottom first, let that sizzle and cook, and then we're gonna light the top. Honestly, I've never felt so good about an episode. Sure, none of this is edible. No one should eat this. Science never asked whether we should, only whether we could. And that's what food theory is all about now. Alright, let's do this. This one didn't work well. worked as intended. We're seeing a good amount of browning on the side. This is actually working. We're gonna do the top. We're gonna do the top. Come on, come on, come on. Light, 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 light. Don't do this. There we go, there we go. Fire! This is done. Oh my gosh. Did he do it? I think he did.
Ta-da.
I think he did. No, get away from
You didn't
me.
have a meat
Look at
thermometer,
this.
so
Okay, like that color is
yeah,
beautiful.
it's
And
just
if you
black, but
rip it open.
what do you think?
It's so hot, it's so hot. Ah! Look, the inside is now hot. Is it raw? Yes. Would I get this and send it back immediately? But we have a beautiful color on the outside. Beautiful char. It's less raw in the middle now than it was. I think we need to up it. So this was 80 total. We're gonna have to go up to whatever we got left. We have our first round of sparklers right here. We have 45 on the bottom. We're gonna light these bad boys. Then we're gonna do the top, just like we did last time, except this time with 10 more total sparklers for a total of 90. Then over here, we're gonna do the same thing. So we're actually gonna take it and just directly put it on here and repeat the process. If it cooks, it cooks. That's all we care about today. All we care about is if we can cook on here, because I am that afraid of just asking people if they're done with the grill, all right? That is how debilitating my fear is. I would rather eat toxic waste than have that public confrontation. Let's do this. There we go. There we go. All right. Expelliarmus, or whatever Harry Potter says.
Yeah.
Guys. So like Outbound is like a place where people tend to stop off before they go on to like hiking or kiteboarding.
We call it fueling their adventure. It's kind of our motto.
All right, that's ornament number 2. I made 2 ornaments out of 1 skeleton. So I'm gonna make another one, but that'll use up those.
Oh my god, it's so cool. No, no, no.
We don't have a fairy. Well, do I? I got this.
Yes, that was a good portion of my remaining sparklers, literally going up in flame. I'm fine. It's fine. Not fine, I'm really pissed about it, but at this point, I was totally done with these
As long as
sparklers.
the inside is
And the
clean.
salt. So I just said, screw it. I went all in. I dropped another 45 on top, and then however much I had for one big final flash. Let's go!
Oh, those are definitely more burgers. Oh, that's how
Last
I do it.
one.
Ooh, look at that. You got a nice crust on this burger. This is the moment of truth, because the outside doesn't matter. What matters
I have
is
to
the
order
inside,
more,
right?
but I don't have any more of the domes. I don't know if any more are ever going to come in.
We did it! Look at that! There's a little bit of pink, there's a little bit of juice, but it's cooked. I mean, it smells horrible. It smells like all the best things I've ever made, but it's cooked, and all it took was 180 sparklers. So I'm gonna clean up and let's go back upstairs because we can't be here any longer. We're gonna get kicked out. We did it, and that honestly is something I didn't think I'd be saying today. Let me get it. Hold up. Stay right there. Don't move. Let me get this toxic waste. Just in case you weren't able to see it downstairs. It looks a lot worse now. It looked better when it was warm. The outside got a nice char to it. It's, no, okay, yeah, so you can actually see it's medium rare. A little more on the rare side, but the fact that we were able to use all these sparklers to relatively cook this was astounding.
Of course, I do say it was relatively good. Let's be honest, the burger was a little more rare than anyone should be comfortable shoving down their gullet. But even if it was fully cooked, the cascade of seasoning from the sparklers means that after spending 2.5 hours of my life cooking this stupid burger, it's not wrong. I guess there's just one thing left to do. Hey, are you almost done with the grill? What? Hey, that's just a theory. Food
I'm disappointed. He could have done better.
And hey, if you want to see me cook meat in my car, make sure to click the link on the screen now. And as always, I'll see you next week.
He just tried to use sparkler. I think you should have used maybe not the tin foil, but some sort of other base to make almost like a grill with the sparklers under it. So I've decided to do with the fairy instead of this. Anybody see the lighter? There we go.
We will be wrong about one. And since its release, its place in the timeline has remained an unconfirmed mystery. But Now we have The Week Before, a book set the week before the very first game. Will it solve this 10-year-old mystery, or is it going to leave the timeline even more broken? Hello Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that reads the FNAF books so you don't have to. Like, seriously, why are there 25 of these things? But regardless of how I feel about the mere existence of these things, Scott is still pumping them out, and now we've got a new series of interactive novels starting officially with The Week Before. For those of you who don't know, The Week Before is FNAF's legally distinct version of a choose-your-own-adventure book. They can't legally call it that because it's trademarked.
I didn't know that.
In this book, we take on the role of Ralph, a friendly security guard working the night shift the week before FNAF 1. The same security guard that we hear during each night of FNAF 1.
Hello. I want to record a message for you to help you get settled in on your first night.
That's right, Ralph is Phone Guy. Nice to finally put a name to a voice. From here, you get to choose how the story plays out. Some parts will take you through the pizzeria that we know so well at this point. Others will offer you new storylines, and others will land you exactly where Phone Guy ends up during the night 4 call of FNAF 1.
Ooh, hot plastic, hot plastic. I got lumps on my lungs. I shouldn't be doing this.
As you might have guessed, this book has caused quite a stir in the FNAF community. Firstly because, well, it's actually a pretty good book. The interactive element really gamifies the whole reading experience and builds the anticipation of where it's going. But the real reason it's become such a hot-button topic is because it provides us with answers to some of our most burning questions about this franchise. Not just who Phone Guy is, but who did the bite of 87, with the employees' new tactics of flashing their lights to stop the animatronic, and Phone Guy's insistence that the animatronic never bit a kid, with the emphasis on kid. All signs point towards it being Foxy. How many spirits are inside of Golden Freddy? Well, according to the Sixth Night, Ralph is overwhelmed by a noise of "it's me" when he's touched by Golden Freddy. But underneath that noise is a different voice speaking in full sentences. 2 voices, 2 spirits. Who those spirits are and how it works are theories for another day. But it's been so exciting to finally feel like we're getting some answers to questions we've had since that very first game. However, the biggest question that I and many other theorists wanted answered was, what year does FNAF 1 take place? This book is literally set the week before FNAF 1, so anything's going to give us the answer. This, or so we thought. In true FNAF fashion, while offering answers to some questions, this book is cryptic about others. But as I went back through the book and the evidence surrounding FNAF 1's date, I noticed something. We've been looking at this entirely wrong. There's a detail that's been hanging over us for a whole decade. A detail that changes not just when in the timeline FNAF 1's pizzeria existed, but the entire timeline as we know it. Grab your camera viewing tablets, friends, because we gotta go back to the original Freddy's for one more night to figure out when FNAF 1 really takes place.
Hello. I wanted to record a message for you to get settled into your first night. Welcome to Lumen X FNAF 2024, where fun and style come alive at night. Can't believe the rest is covered in ketchup. Anyway, I'm sure you've already taken a look at the cameras, but just some extra information for you. You can see Tom wearing the Glam Rock Freddy Bunch tee. Careful with him. He will talk your head off about the moon not existing. Then you have Lee in the withered canvas jacket and the comeback tee. Just a constant professional, but still deadly. He does have a sword. Santi you can find sporting the endo jacket and the scrap tee. Don't worry too much about him though. He's all bark and no bite. Let's see. Then Amy. Keep your eye on Amy and her Fredbear reversible fleece and Night Terrors joggers. She's small, but definitely gives off "will rip you apart" vibes, and actually will. I think that's it. Keep an eye on the animatronics. Lock the doors if they get close. Yeah. Oh, wait, don't forget about Ash. The next Lumen X FNAF collaboration. Now live at lumenofficial.com. What is he looking to use, John?
An idea.
1993 has basically been the de facto date for FNAF 1 ever since Matt's very first FNAF episode. He used the amount of money earned in the week and compared it with the minimum wages throughout the years, which landed him somewhere in the early 90s. Combine that with the fact that most weekly employees are paid on Fridays, with the date we get paid in FNAF 1 being November 12th, and you find the only year that fits is 1993. We almost got confirmation of this date too, thanks to some leaked Faz facts from FNAF AR, saying things like Fazbear's twisted pizza recipe was voted most yummy by 6 out of 10 children in every survey from 1988 to 1993. But we were later told by Illumix, the company that made the game, not to use this cut content for lore purposes. These might have been cut because Scott just likes to be cryptic, or it could be because the date was wrong. Either way, it did sow the seeds of doubt within the community about the legitimacy of 1993 as our FNAF 1 year. Since then, a couple of other dates have been thrown around, but despite all of the theorizing, we never had something that felt truly solid, which was where we all hoped the week before would come in and save the day. And at first, it seemed like it was doing
Oh,
just
I need
that.
a butter things.
Ralph not only records the phone calls that we
Do
get
they only have the blue?
I
think I do. I only have the
recordings
blue.
that, according to him, are from
Yeah,
very
that's
long
disappointing.
ago. Quote, it's strange to listen to a recording of yourself, especially one from so long ago. If you remember correctly, your daughter had just been born. I know, it is strange listening to a recording of yourself. Welcome to my life, mate. And the very story, we learned that Ralph's daughter, Capella, is 11 years old. So, if this recording was made around when she was born, and that initial recording says it's from Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, not Fredbear's Family Diner,
Thank you for the
then
thumbs up.
earliest this game could take place is 11 years after Freddy's opened in 1983, making the year 1994. Now, there's always a chance that he recorded the calls a year or so before the opening, or he simply rounded up a year. The phrase just be born could mean sometime between Capella literally being born and being 12 to 24 months old, which would allow for 1993 to still fit the bill here. That is, if it wasn't for something YouTuber The Unwithered Truth pointed out. They also did a whole video trying to figure out the year of FNAF 1, but they found an interesting detail. The page where we're told Ralph recorded these phone line messages around when his daughter was born has two main faults. The first is that to get to this page, it requires some really odd pathway choices. By getting through to the 6th night on your first playthrough, you unlock a mobile phone, which the book calls the bonus item. You then need to restart the book with the bonus item in your inventory. At various points, the book offers you a chance to use the bonus item, and you're encouraged to do so whenever this option is presented, because that leads to the canon FNAF 1 phone calls being recorded. However, to get to the page about when your daughter was born, you actually have to reject recording the night 1 phone call. On this new path, you instead need to call the voicemail service, but to do that, you need a code. This code is on the mobile phone's speed dial, but you would only know that if you had taken the previous prompt and used the bonus item to record the night 1 phone call, skipping this voicemail section entirely. Plus, it doesn't use the typical bonus item prompt. It just says if you have the 4-digit code. Without the bonus item, you never know what this code is. But if you have the bonus item, you'd have likely skipped this page and recorded the night 1 phone call. Yes, it is technically possible to do things this way, but it flies in the face of logic for the reader. Of course, you could just dismiss this as a small mistake, but then once you do get to the page about your daughter's age, we find another problem. It contains information that directly contradicts other information in the book. On this page, it tells you you've never brought Capella here, as in where you work, Freddy Fazbear's. Yet later on in the book, it says she's never gotten over the time you brought her to work to meet the animatronics when she was 7. Both of these things cannot be true. Either she's been to Freddy's or she hasn't. And so it makes it really difficult to lean on Capella's age as a defining piece of evidence to settle this debate. Fortunately, there are a few other clues to help us out. Throughout the book, it becomes clear that Ralph has a bit of an affinity for modern pop culture, specifically movies and TV shows. On page 147, he references The Goonies. On page 194, he punches in the code 1234, and when it's wrong, says that would be a combination an idiot would have on their luggage. The same line from the movie Spaceballs. When fighting against the animatronics, Ralph's daughter yells, "Try holy water, death breath," which comes from the movie The Lost Boys. This thing is full of references like this, and they're mostly from the 1980s. The Goonies was first released in 1985, Spaceballs was released in 1987, and The Lost Boys was also released in 1987. However, there is one year that comes up more commonly. On page 157, Ralph says how Bruce Willis makes crawling through vents look easy, referencing Die Hard from 1989. On page 176, he mentions watching Lethal Weapon movies, as in more than just the original, with the sequel coming in 1989.
1989. He even references an episode of Star Trek on page 8, Who Watches the Watcher, an episode that was released in 1989. And finally, he mentions his daughter playing a Sega Genesis console, which was released in, you guessed it, 1989. With all of these references to the same date, it really feels like the emphasis is on this year, especially given that none of these references come from media that goes beyond November 1989, the month which we know FNAF 1 takes place.
think these are
The broken
good.
page about recording the photos when Ralph's daughter was born, you no longer need to
Actually,
worry
leave
about
those
Freddy
right
being
there.
around 11 years prior, which makes 1989 feel like a really solid candidate. Please don't. As I said, there are a bunch of references in the book, but there's only
Whoopsie.
one that is twice time to make the donuts. This is the catchphrase of Fred the Baker, a character from a bunch of Dunkin' Donuts commercials introduced in 1981. That feels pretty in line with what we've already established. It's just another 80s reference. Except Fred the Baker and his catchphrase extended beyond the 1980s. The last commercial with Fred saying his iconic line was 1997.
Time to make the coffee, time to make the donut.
So while yes, the catchphrase did exist in the 80s, this means we can't rule out the possibility that it takes place sometime in the 90s. And to top it off, there's one other reference that throws a spanner into the 1989 idea. Disney. No, I'm not kidding. Disney is canon in the FNAF universe. People thought we were crazy for comparing their mascot designs to FNAF in our Ultimate Timeline, but here we are. You smile, thinking back on better times. For a while, you'd have said that Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was the happiest place on Earth, if you weren't worried about infringing on a trademark. The happiest place on Earth is, of course, the slogan for Disneyland, which opened in 1995. However, the key detail in that line isn't the slogan, but the kind of lawsuit Ralph is afraid of, trademark infringements. We spoke about trademarks in our recent Poppy Playtime episode, but the basic gist is that a person or business can trademark a phrase to stop others using it to sell their own products. In this case, it would be to stop other parks or franchises calling themselves the happiest place on Earth, as that could lead to visitors thinking they were visiting an official Disney attraction when actually they were going to a Murder Bear pizzeria. To get a trademark, you have to apply for it, making it an official legal thing that you own. And despite being around since 1955, Disney didn't actually register for that trademark until 1998. For Ralph to be accused of trademark infringement, this book, and therefore FNAF 1, has to take place after the trademark was filed in... This isn't a totally out there date for FNAF 1 either. I know Ride Toast has liked the idea of FNAF 1 being in 1998 for some time, mainly due to the date given to us on FNAF paychecks. In FNAF 1, we're paid on November 12th, and in FNAF 2, we're also paid on November 12th. Only this time, we know the year, 1987. That isn't a Friday as we initially discussed, but a Thursday, implying Fazbear typically breaks the mold and pays on Thursdays. And another year with November 12th on a Thursday is...
This isn't gonna work.
What to expect at this point, 19...
Ahead. I don't think it's gonna
This
work.
egg would also as 11 years prior is 1986. The grand reopening of Freddy's in FNAF 2. Finally, it also theorists for years. During night 1 of FNAF 1, Ralph's phone call mentions that these characters were, quote, forced to sing those same stupid songs for 20 years. 20 years prior to 1998 would have been 1978. Since
Oh, wait, this is Gesso,
we've
isn't
been
it?
aware that the franchise has existed, and just like it's possible he was rounding years
Alright,
to the phrase
can't work on
just
you today.
born, it's not too much of a stretch to believe he rounded up to 20 years when it was actually a year less, and it was 1979. So is that it? Is 1998 the year of FNAF 1? Honestly, I thought so for a pretty decent chunk of time, but as I was going back through all the evidence, something struck me. The quote from Ralph about singing those songs for 20 years, it's not the full quote. We often spend a lot of time focusing on the 20 years because that feels like a definitive amount and can fit into whatever timeline we come up with. But the full line gives us an extra detail about exactly what he's referring to.
If I were forced to sing those same stupid songs for 20 years, if I never got a bath, I'd probably be a bit irritable at night too.
Did you catch it? Ralph mentions them never being washed in those 20 years. You can't wash a character. It's just a fictional concept, which means this line has to be referring to the animatronics themselves. In the book, he also states that he was so happy that they restored Freddy and the gang to their vintage designs. These aren't new animatronics. They opened locations clarification. These are old animatronics that have been restored, the same ones that have been around for 20 years. His joke about not getting a bath is just his explanation for why they smell, as during the Cannes run of the week before, he never discovers the truth about the kids' bodies being stuffed inside. Ralph's not talking about the characters of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. He's talking about the physical animatronics, and that changes everything. Because if these 4 animatronics have to have been around for 20 years, then that means there's only one date FNAF 1 to be. We've seen that time and time again, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was officially established in 1983. If the animatronics from FNAF 1 are supposed to be the same animatronics restored to their original vintage designs, then that would mean the earliest FNAF 1 could take place is 2003. But what about the Secret of the Mimic teaser? That showed the franchise was active in 1979. And that's true, but it's not taking into account the era of FNAF that game takes place in. In the books, the Mimic is invented as one of the earliest ever animatronics, designed to mimic the routines of others and wear whatever costumes it needs to become that character. This is the costume era of FNAF, not that early animatronics. The creator of the Mimic in the books is working on animatronics of the main 4, but they haven't debuted yet. We saw the same thing at Steel Wool's PAX West booth, where they showed a sneak peek of the game. On the walls was a poster saying, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, coming soon. The original animatronics have not yet taken center stage. They haven't started singing those silly songs yet, so the 20 years needs to start after they've debuted, once again pointing us to 1983 and therefore 2003. But what about the minimum wage, or the paychecks, or the references? It's true. Earning $120 for 5 nights of 6 hours work is $4 an hour, while minimum wage in 2003 is $5.15. But I also point out that after completing the 6th night, you only get an extra 50 cents in overtime pay, which regardless of whether it's 1989, 1993, or 2003, is still way too low. I'm just not convinced Scott thought through the amount all that much. As for the dates, the 12th of November 2003 is a Wednesday, and so it doesn't line up with FNAF 2's pay schedule. The only explanation I could offer is that in the movie, Mike learns about the job on April 6th, 2000, a Thursday, and the next day calls Afton and starts the job on Friday night, making his 5th night and the day he would typically be paid Tuesday. So we can't necessarily guarantee Fazbear is paying on the same day of the week for all of those years. As for all of the references in the week before, well, just because references exist in the 1980s or the trademark was first established in 1998, it doesn't mean that's the only time those things can be mentioned. My dad only references Top Gun, which came out in 1986. In fact, he goes to the cinema every other week. References like this can limit the earliest it can take place, but not necessarily how far into the future it goes. If it is 2003, this would mean that FNAF 1 takes place 16 years after the closure of 1987, which, if you're trying to revitalize a franchise, feels like an awfully long time to wait, although we all know the power of nostalgia with older audiences these days. As for the future parts of the franchise, this is where I'll admit things fall apart a little. FNAF 3 takes place 30 years after the closure of Freddy's, which would then become 2033. That isn't an issue by itself, but based on this poster and the calendar from Security Breach, it's been theorized that Security Breach takes place in 2035. That means that FNAF 3, FNAF 6, Help Wanted, Special Delivery, and Security Breach all have to take place in 2 years. That's a speedrun worthy of a Tetrabit video. Again, that 2035 date has only been theorized about, so there is a chance that, like our initial FNAF 1 date, it's also not correct. Though I will admit, it is annoying if Henry's message in FNAF 6 that was labelled HRY223 has nothing to do with the year of the recording and is just an arbitrary number. So, what now? We've examined the 3 options it feels like this book is trying to point us towards: 1989, 1998, or 2003. All of them have some pretty decent evidence supporting them, but they also have plenty of weaknesses. So, which one is the definitive true answer? This is where I'm sure many of you are waiting for me to pull out the trump card, the final piece of evidence that will settle this debate and give us an answer that no one was expecting. The truth is, every time I tried to solve this paradox, there was always one piece of evidence that just didn't fit. mistakes. If we agree it's 2003, then the paycheck days don't work, and Henry's message number means nothing. If we agree it's 1998, then the animatronics can't have been around for 20 years. There's just no meaning. This book was clearly supposed to give us answers, but a few mistakes or contradictions here and there have made it impossible to do so. And that is so frustrating as a fan of this franchise. We spent the last few years begging for answers to this franchise, and over the last year, it really felt like Scott was answering our prayers, clarifying older details in the franchise. The Bite of 87 being revealed to be Foxy in the week before, the Spring Bonnie aerial on the Midnight Motorist car in 5 Laps at Freddy's revealed that Cheeto Man from Midnight Motorist was Afton all along. Ditophobia revealed that the FNAF 4 nightmares were a result of hallucinogenic gas, not sound illusion discs. But when you actually stop and look at those now solved mysteries, outside of the immediate question, what did they actually solve? Cheeto Man is Afton, but we still don't know for sure who the kid that escapes is, who the person in the living room is, what the mound is. FNAF 4 is hallucinogenic gas. Okay, cool, but the game still plays out the same. The Bite of 87 was Foxy, but nothing else has developed as a result, other than clearing the name of my beloved Mangle. Even today's mystery, the date of FNAF 1, what would knowing that year ultimately change about the story? Regardless of whether it's 1998 or 2003, FNAF 3 still happens next. Then FNAF 6 happens and it also burns down. Then the Help Wanted VR game is made, and then the Pizza Place gets built and is taken over by the Mimic. Sure, it is fun to be able to solve these small loose threads, and so to some degree I'm thankful that Scott is giving them to us, but they're ultimately hollow questions, as we're still unable to use those to figure out the bigger mysteries.
I can have that all over my arm in a minute. I want to keep that right there.
Instead, it kind of feels like we're being played with, given small answers to old questions that don't move the story forward. And even then, they're filled with so many contradictions that you still can't solve them all anyway. And that just sucks. It's one of the reasons why a large part of this fandom
There's
wants the
darker
books to
on
be
the
canon.
outside.
It may not solve everything, but it gives us much more straightforward stories and explanations, something tangible that we can hold on to. And that feels a lot better than the alternative of being left scrambling for details that conflict with each other. We've been left in the dark for so long about so many things, and in a time of so much uncertainty, we want to be able to go to our favorite franchises and feel secure. But instead, it feels as though we're being messed around more and more. As we get close to the end of 2024 and we've got a new year of FNAF upon us, let's just remember to give each other some slack. Whether you believe it's 1989, 1998, 2003, or you want to stick with the original 1993, at the end of the day, we are all working with a broken system, just trying our best to make sense of it. And Scott, if you happen to be watching this, you've got Secret of the Mimic, an interactive novel about Cassie and the Pizza Place, and another Into the Pit adaptation coming. Let there be some actual answers that help us understand more than just the small details. And please make sure there aren't too many contradictions this time. And if you need volunteers to help double check your lore, I might know a group of people that would be willing to help out. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching. And if you want to watch a mystery that can be solved, check out my prediction for Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. Keep on keeping on, theorists.
IXL is helping 15 million students succeed in math and language arts. On IXL, your child can stay on track or get ahead by practicing with fun, interactive questions. Whether they learn best with step-by-step explanations, video tutorials, or games, IXL is here to guide them.
Very awkward to hold you.
Over 75 scientific research studies. You can trust that
I
your
wonder if the camera would be better on the other side. Probably.
Hand your child the keys to success. Join IXL today.
You're worth it.
Introducing Reactive. A new style. New colors. Right now, get 40 to
What if the FNAF books were canon? It's a question that's torn the fanbase apart for years, and now we've had an update to Help Wanted 2 that seems to be telling us the answer is yes. But what would that change? What theories would this ruin? And what does it mean we can expect from Secret of the Mimic this year? Today, we're going to find out. Hello Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that's always looking at FNAF from a new perspective. You may remember that last time I was getting a little frustrated with Scott and his lack of clarity in this franchise. It is fun to be able to solve these small loose threads, but we're still unable to use those to figure out the bigger mysteries. What's the deal with Gregory? What happened to Cassie? Are the books canon? Well, it appears Scott was listening, and now he's not messing around, because we just got ourselves a couple of new pieces of information to answer the biggest question in the franchise's recent history. Are the books canon? Recently, friend of the channel Dorco did a charity live stream, and as per usual, he got special access to some unreleased gameplay and
Let's see a fucking thing.
version of 5 Laps at Freddy's, the weird spin-off kart racer thing. And while playing, a new billboard was discovered. It was advertising a company called Murray Co. and their brand new robotic vacuum cleaner. In the story The Mimic from Tales from the Pizzaplex, we have a character called Edwin Murray who builds a robotic vacuum cleaner. He later goes on to be bought by Fazbear Entertainment and builds the Mimic, the big bad that we saw at the end of Ruin. We also got a very short teaser for a Help Wanted 2
better lighting in
where
here.
we get to see the Mimic's costume model up close. But the important detail was actually in the very corner of the screen, a white tiger plushie with different coloured eyes. In that same story, The Mimic, Edwin's son David has a white tiger plushie, and after he dies, the Mimic begins carrying it around. In later stories like Tiger Rock and Storyteller, the Mimic is heavily associated with a white tiger animatronic with 2 different coloured eyes. A couple of days after all of this, the update came out, and it became even more clear that this was all to do with the Mimic. The tiger plushie was unlocked by using the code 1979, the date we found in the Secret of the Mimic trailer, and roughly around the time Edwin created the Mimic in the books. We get to see the toy factory that people reported the Secret of the Mimic demo from PAX West taking place in, and in the Mimic story, we learn that Edwin lived in a factory where he was making animatronics. As you might imagine, this set the fan base ablaze, because it seemed like the games were finally confirming the canonicity of the books. Before this, the strongest connection we had to the Tales books taking place in the game timeline was just the Mimic existing down in the FNAF 6 building in both the epilogues of Tales and the ending of Ruin. With Edwin's company existing and the white tiger character who we've only ever seen in the books at this point, it feels like more than ever we are being shown that the games and the books may coexist in the same universe. But if that's the case, what does that change? We've been theorizing about this franchise for a long time now, and we've never really considered the books to be canon to the game timeline. So, if the books are now being shown as canon, I wondered what dominoes begin to fall. Which of those theories get debunked? What parts of the story would we have a new perspective on? And what could that mean for future releases? Better grab your Vanny masks once again, theorists, because we've got to take a look at FNAF in a whole new way and ask the question, what if the books were canon? Let's start with the series of books that are most tied to this
Might be unable to get what I need out of this.
In case you don't know, this is a series of 8 books, each containing 3 short stories and an epilogue, with all the epilogues combining into one continuous story across all 8 books. That gives us 25 full stories, all of which take place in a world where most commonly it's some version of Pizzaplex. You may have seen the term Tales games thrown around when talking about whether the books are
The problem with these is they're very bright, which is nice, but not really for what I need.
25 Tales stories being completely one-to-one canon to the games. Fortunately, you don't need to know
wonder
all
if I can
25
just darken
stories
them up with
inside
some
and out
water.
in order to get to grips with how
That's
Tales
dark, alright.
There are a few stories that make small changes, but mostly it's just to provide clarity on parts of the story we weren't sure about. Stories like Help Wanted, where we learn about Steve Snodgrass, game developer who made the original 4 FNAF games for Fazbear Entertainment. Though we find out he's making them based purely on the rumours surrounding the business and his own memories. Plus, his mind is being affected by this little high-pitched noise, distorting the reality around him, and it's all coming from one little disc. If the books are canon, then this story would not only confirm the canon existence of sound illusion discs, everyone's favorite FNAF gadget, but it would also 100% confirm that canonically, the first 3 to 4 games are in-universe games. Now, we have known about this idea since the Help Wanted game.
That's
Not too bad.
the game developer. Those indie games were designed to compete.
Yeah, it will look a lot better dolled up like that.
Just an attempt to rebrand. It's an elaborate cover-up.
But what this changes is the reliability of those games for lore purposes. After the Help Wanted game, despite being told that these were in-universe games, it was unclear how one-to-one they were with reality. This story tells us that they were being made by someone who didn't know the true stories and whose mind was slowly being worn down. This allows for Scott and Steelwall to retcon certain details from those games without them really being retcons. They're just something Steve made up. Obviously, if a modern entry confirms a detail from FNAF 1 to 4, then we can be sure it's likely true. And we actually get a good example of this. Sitophobia. This was the final story from Tales from the Pizza Place, and it involves a character named Rory, living in a house that is described exactly like the FNAF 4 house. Rory believes he is a kid with a family, but as time goes on, it's revealed he's not a kid, he's grown up. The house is disgusting, and the entire place has been filled with a hallucinogenic gas coming from the underground bunker. Circus babies. We've wondered for a long time what was causing the nightmares in FNAF 4, whether it was sound illusion discs or just an overwhelming sense of fear and guilt. But if these books are canon, the answer becomes clear. The nightmares are real, but it's the hallucinogenic gas that truly brings them to life. So that's hallucinogenic gas, sound illusion discs, and don't forget we have VR and AR in this one. There are 3 reality-altering tools on the table for this franchise. Basically, we can't trust anything we see in the games anymore. Then there's the more modern stories like GG1. This one focuses on a kid named Greg that is hacking into the Pizzaplex animatronics, leaving high scores on all the arcade machines, and is getting rid of any counselors or anyone else that gets too close to the truth. With his arcade and hacking sign-offs being GGY, it's almost certain that his full name is Gregory, as in our Gregory from Security Breach, which also makes Gregory Patient 46, the mysterious child from the therapy CDs we collect during Security Breach that also has a habit of getting rid of therapists. The final point of clarity here is that Greg refers to himself as the wizard's favorite apprentice during the story, as well as using the handle Dr. Rabbit, which feels like a mighty big hint that Gregory is working for Glitchtrap, just like Vanessa. To be fair, we've actually been on board with this idea for a while, so it hasn't really changed any of our theories. But if the books are canon, it just solidifies it more as fact rather than theory. The only thing we have to wonder now is whether he's still under Glitchtrap's control. Help Wanted 2 and Security Breach seem to be telling us that Vanessa is now free of Glitchtrap, and in Ruin, they are implied to be working together to help Cassie. So is Gregory also free now, or is he just playing the long con? As I've said, those 3 stories don't really change much about the lore. They provide some clarity and add depth to certain lore aspects that were otherwise just dropped on us with no real explanation, but it doesn't really derail anything. However, that isn't the case for every story. And now we have to talk about the big 3. The Mimic, the Storyteller, and the Epilogues. And if these stories are canon, it causes a drastic shift in how we look at this modern era of FNAF. A quick recap for those who don't know. These stories focus around the latest big bad of the series, the Mimic. It starts with Edwin Murray and his son, David. Edwin is a robotics genius whose company was bought by Fazbear Entertainment, and his job was to turn the original Freddy's costumes into animatronics. He ends up building the Mimic out of spare parts, and it's designed to mimic and play with his son. Sadly though, one day his son runs out of the factory into the road and is hit by a car. But even after he dies, the Mimic continues mimicking David's behavior, causing Edwin to get angry and beat the Mimic to a metallic pulp. Edwin then disappears, leaving Fazbear to come and collect their property from Edwin's factory, where the Mimic begins violently murdering those who come to collect. They do eventually manage to contain the Mimic, as while they begin construction of the Pizzaplex on top of the FNAF 6 location, a version of the Mimic is dropped off alongside other animatronics that will make up the Glenrock Band. The Mimic is then programmed to help clear the endos that remain inside, ripping their arms and heads off. But it doesn't just
just stop at the endos. Construction workers begin being torn apart limb from limb, leading to the location being cemented over, putting it inside the 6 Years later, once the pizza box is running, the Mimic software is used to run something called the Storyteller, a Baobab tree that connects the entire Pizzaplex, and it's designed to create new fun storylines for the characters to play out, except it ends up turning the animatronics into more childish and more dangerous versions of themselves. At this point, Edwin returns and tries to stop the Mimic, only to die in the process, with the Storyteller later being removed to the Mimic program remains. There is a lot to unpack there, and the number of theories that go out the window if these books do end up being canon. The first and most obvious one, the origins of the Mimic. Until this point, we've been theorizing that there was meant to be a parallel for Henry. Both were involved in the early days of Fazbear. Even theorized that Henry had been bought out by Afton much like Edwin was. Both made the earliest animatronics and both had young children that died, and they took their agony out on their animatronic creations that were designed to mimic their now deceased child. That led to several theories about how Henry originally created the Mimic, and that it was originally made to be part of their traveling circus alongside Henry and William. But if the books are canon, that cannot case, as it's very clearly Edwin that created the Mimic. Now, that's not to say the Mimic couldn't have been used as part of the circus. We see Jackie from Secret of the Mimic is very much circus themed, but it just wasn't the reason it was created. Instead, that would have just been a retroactive use for it. We also had a theory about how the Mimic had been locked underground for a very long time, at least since the 1980s. After Henry disappeared, Afton went to collect what belonged to Fazbear, including the Mimic, and then used it to help create the Funtime animatronics, only for it to all go wrong and for it to kill his daughter. He then locked the Mimic underground and created a glue gun of mixes to keep it locked away. Again, if the books are canon, this theory cannot be true, as the Mimic doesn't arrive at the Pizzaplex until construction on the Pizzaplex has already begun. There is still a chance that the Mimic was used by Afton to create the Funtimes, as they go to collect the Mimic just a few months after its creation sometime in the 70s, way before Afton's own spring locking. It just means that Elizabeth's death wasn't enough to make Afton go, maybe this isn't such a good idea, which I would say feels strange, and then again, this is the guy who tortured his own son with nightmare animatronics, so it sadly tracks. The books also reveal who is trying to revive Fazbear Entertainment.
Experience Pureology sulfate-free hair care, 100% vegan, clean formulas, no parabens or minerals.
There's no such thing as vegan.
75 uses per
My
bottle.
goodness.
Pureology, made to feel.
Where did that go? Oh, right there. Okay.
The new Elastoplast Second Skin Protection, 100% waterproof. Yes, like a second skin.
Okay. So, it looks pretty good. Got some mushrooms, got some flowers.
This is you before Irving's Free Fuel for Life summer game.
And this is you after you play the Free Fuel for Life summer game.
Life is better when you win.
Play the Free Fuel
Looks fine to me.
with hometown rewards and fuel for
Alright.
the winner. Irving.
I'm sure he fits the ugly part in the
And
back.
turns out it's not an important or relevant character like Mrs. Afton, like we theorized about in our Black timeline. I should really do a new one of those. Let me know down in the comments if you'd like to see my updated version of this. Anyway, instead, it's a random businessman called Mr. Burrows, and it turns out the reason the Pizzaplex was built on top of FNAF 6 and the reason the Mimic was given access to the Pizzaplex systems wasn't for some big master plan with Afton's old computer chips and burnt corpse. It was just a dumb business move made by someone who knew nothing about anything in order to achieve the main goal that you might expect from a modern CEO, profits. And because Mr. Burrows dies alongside Edwin after installing the Storyteller, which has clearly been removed by the time of security breach, that would imply that the messages we saw about Vanessa's hiring, despite her lack of qualifications, were almost certainly the Mimic's doing. Vanessa was possessed by the Mimic, aka Glitchtrap, and Mr. Burroughs' death, the Mimic had full control of Fazbear's systems, including email. So when it says that her recommendation came from the top, it was likely the Mimic using Mr. Burroughs' email to put its plan into motion. But what is the Mimic's plan? Well, at this point, it's just something. If it truly wants to continue after
That
this,
is number 5 for the stairs.
Nice. Pizza.
This is right in there. I did put some spiders in here just to excuse for that.
While there is clearly a Mimic on the Pizzaplex in the games, it doesn't appear to be the Mimic 2 that we read about in the epilogues. In the epilogues, it's a black, almost gooey spider-like thing, transforming into whatever shape it needs. But then in Ruin, we got this thing, an endo made up of the most random of parts that walks with a Mimic. These two things don't feel like they're a threatening creature, but if we think about it and we do consider the
Okay, on the floor, I don't care.
by the end of the epilogue, the Mimic is destroyed. Springlocked by a Jester costume. If the Mimic
Black, I
wants to
guess.
use this body, it would need to be repaired. Enter Vanessa, and thanks to DGY, Gregory, who can then use Glamrock Freddy to clear the path down into the depths, into the Fab 6 building, and to where the Mimic's destroyed body lies. From here, they would do what we initially suspected Vanessa was doing with Burn Trap. They would repair him using a mixture
I need to put these bones somewhere before I lose them.
in order to put that could be why we see it limping before the chase scene. It's either still partially damaged, or it's just because the parts aren't its own, but a random assaulter that's not fully balanced or calibrated. That would then tie into the ending we got from the New Help 1
We started this path, we're going to stick with it. Oh, more bones! Okay, nice. I found more bones. I'm doing another skeleton tonight. Okay,
It seems like both Gregory and Vanessa
I'm looking for something to make a circle with.
control, but they know what's down there. They put it back together, and because of that, they know how to stop it. What we're seeing in this ending could be Gregory and Vanessa driving mixes to the pizza place, collecting it from the same place the Mimic came from, the MCN toy store and factory. Edwin's. That's why Gregory's backpack and walkie-talkie end up down with the Mimic, because they were installing mixes to keep it locked away, only for the Mimic to learn Gregory's voice and trick Cassie into freedom. All of this amounts to is actually something we theorized a very long time ago about the future of this franchise. One that we've actually been quite disappointed hadn't seemed to have come to fruition since then. The soft reboot of the franchise. By making Edwin canon to the games, and with the Mimic being the true identity behind Glitchtrap, it removes the parts both Afton and Henry played in our theories. We finally moved on from the original characters and story of Henry versus Afton, and into a new era of new characters like Vanessa, Gregory, Cassie, and the Mimic. The Steel Wool era of games still uses the same rules and world as before, but it's more about the knock-on effects of those old characters' actions, rather than their direct input. And that's great. Ultimate Custom Night felt like a great ending to the story. Now, in retrospect, if the books are canon, we can truly split the series up and treat this as a new era separate from those original stories. However, if Tales is canon, this isn't the only thing that changes. There's one more story, one more domino that has to fall, and the story is called Frailty. Here we meet a girl called Jessica, who has a special metallic necklace that when she scrapes off shavings and puts them on dying patients at a hospital, they get better. At the end of the story, she uses the last of this necklace and becomes a The powers of this necklace are nearly identical to the power we saw from the necklace given to Sarah by Eleanor in the story To Be Beautiful. Sarah was eventually turned into a pile of scraps, but while she wore the necklace, she appeared human. The reason that this is such a big deal is that To Be Beautiful isn't from Tales from the Pizza Place. It's from Fazbear Frights, the previous collection of short stories. And if Eleanor becomes canonical, then at the very least, every story connected to her also becomes canonical. Agony would become canon. Traveling Bullpits would be canon. And the Afton amalgamation, or the Agony, the thing everyone said Matt was insane for even suggesting to be part of the game's timeline, would indeed be canon. This idea, the fan base has dubbed Stitchline games, because they all tie into the epilogues from those books surrounding a mysterious character called the Stitch Wraith. The Stitch Wraith is an endoskeleton that contains the souls of two children, Jake and Andrew. And Andrew is the more interesting one in terms of canonicity. Andrew was killed by William as one of the 6 missing kids that were killed in 1985. Because of this, Andrew is angry, vengeful even, to the point where in The Man in Room 1280, he keeps a burnt and dying Afton alive in a hospital just to torture him inside his mind. That sounds familiar, almost as if it's exactly what happens in Ultimate Custom Night. A vengeful spirit torturing Afton for all eternity. For the longest time, we've attributed this role to Cassidy, the 5th missing kid, and a spirit possessing Golden Freddy. But if the Tales books are canon, which means that at least the Stitch Wraith stories are canon, that would mean that Andrew's spirit is more likely the one torturing Afton. The Man in Room 1280 and Ultimate Custom Nights are happening at the same time. Andrew is the vengeful spirit. I suppose that would explain why the one you should not have killed is referred to using male pronouns.
Here and always ready. The one you shouldn't have killed.
The only confusing part is why show us Golden Freddy for beating the hardest difficulty? In the story The New Kid, they do find a kid with black curly hair inside the Golden Freddy suit, which matches the description of Andrew's hair, but then he's not shown to possess Golden Freddy in any of the Stitch Wraith stories. And in the Into the Pit game, we have a minigame that shows us an Andrew-possessed Fetch, while Golden Freddy sits there with its eyes lit up, implying that Golden Freddy is already possessed and that it and Andrew are separate. Plus, what's with Andrew not getting a gravestone? The 6 graves we have are Gabriel, Fritz, Susie, Jeremy, Cassidy, and
He was an
Charles.
orphan.
Andrew's parents just not love him
And
enough
nobody
to get
missed
one.
him.
It does feel odd that this clearly very important character doesn't really appear in anything, and has largely been forgotten in all the clues given to us inside the games themselves. But then, I guess this is where the new games can come in. If Stitchline is canon, that would make the Into the Pit game canon, and Megacat has already teased us with a Fetch sequel coming at some point. So details like this could be more thoroughly explored in those future titles. And actually, there's something quite satisfying about that. What that would essentially leave us with are 2 sets of games running side by side, the Megacat series and the Steel Wool series. One aimed at clarifying Andrew's story within the older games, and one aimed at exploring the future of the franchise's story. It all sounds so idyllic, doesn't it? It feels like a number of holes in the story do get filled in if the books are in fact canon. The question is, do I really think they are? Now, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the other side of this canon coin just a little bit. While the appearance of a Tiger Rock plushie and Edwin's name on the sign do seem like compelling pieces of evidence towards the books being canon, there is a chance this is another Silver Eye situation. In those books, we have William and Henry, but while they share a name with their in-game counterparts, they are decidedly different characters. In the games, Afton gets spring-locked and locked in a back room, only being found 30 years later in FNAF 3. While in the books, Afton survives his spring locking, isn't locked away, and goes on to pursue immortality. In the books, Henry unalives himself in 1985 when he can't take the grief of his daughter's death, while in the games, he sacrifices himself when burning down the FNAF 6 pizzeria, which is at least 30 years after the closure of Freddy. Same characters, different stories. And so, there is a chance we're seeing the same thing happen here. Edward definitely seems to exist in the main canon, but it may not be one-to-one with his book counterparts. Tiger Rock also seems to exist in the games and the books, so the story surrounding him in the Mimic might be slightly different. It's also worth noting that we were introduced to William Afton's name and Henry as a full character in the books first, and then later they showed up in the games, which is exactly what we've seen with the Mimic, a character that was introduced in the books first, then showed up in Ruin later. It's following a similar pattern. The truth is, either of these options is entirely possible. Right now, we just don't have enough evidence to say one way or the other with complete certainty. We're just gonna have to wait for Secret of the Mimic to hopefully learn more and get the answer. However, despite the existence of these writers not confirming the book's canonicity 100%, I will say that the more I worked on this episode, the more open I became to this possibility. Like I said at the start of this episode, last time I asked Scott for clarity, and it feels like that's what we're getting. So I'd be silly not to take it seriously. Plus, if the books weren't meant to be canon, then including a Tiger Rock plushie and Edwin's name is just sowing discord for the sake of it. than actually trying to help clarify things. And I know Scott is known for being a bit of a troll, but that feels extreme even for him. By including them while not completely confirming anything, it does feel like we're being pointed in that direction. And as we've talked about today, that could be really helpful for explaining the mess that was Security Breach, Vanessa's original plan, who was running the pizza place, and why the Mimic is different now than in books. But I guess we're just going to have to wait and see when Secret of the Mimic comes out this year to know for sure. Maybe on April 6th, 2025, if the 4625 code from the New Help Wanted ending is anything to go by. But in the meantime, remember, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching. World premiere on Game Theory. I have found Frankie. After just one visit to this deadly trampoline park, it's become clear that this show wasn't made to make money or to entertain viewers so they watch people eat their crossbones. It was made with far more personal intent, and we fell for it hook, line, and sinker.
We used IXL as a supplemental material along with our regular homeschool. I'm really grateful that we found out about this app because we have seen such an improvement in the boys' learning since they started using IXL. Every feature is designed to see where your child is in their learning. It supports and challenges them at the right level so they can learn at a pace that's perfect for them. I can't say enough good things about this app. We love it and it has helped so much.
Experience Pureology sulfate-free hair care. Pureology, made to feel.
Canadian businesses are facing new challenges. BDC, the Business Development Bank of Canada, is
I wonder where we'd be if
breaking down
the world wasn't run by hateful old men.
Kashi Crunchy Bars and Chewy Bars are made with real, simple ingredients like dark chocolate, whole almonds, and chia seeds. They're crunchy, chewy, and oh so tasty. Kashi, full of flavor, full of life.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, and the final part of my FNAF timeline, where today we're bringing our story to a close by talking about the most complicated and controversial part of the timeline, the part that I've been dreading most of all, the end. The moment where we're finally forced to come to some definitive and difficult answers trying to explain what the heck we were watching in Security Breach. The last two episodes have been about death. The death of Afton's family, the deaths of multiple children, the death of the franchise itself as Mike and Henry figuratively and literally burn it all down. Today's episode, though, and the current end of this franchise, is instead all about rebirth, the return of old characters in new forms, and the controversial rebirth of a franchise entering the next era of its story. But before we hop into the timeline, due to scheduling conflicts, I won't be live talk back after this episode. I know, I promised one, I was really excited about it, but I just couldn't make it work with my schedule and all the other guests' schedules. That said, I still do plan on doing one over the coming weeks with special guests. Just make sure that you're subscribed and either have all notifications turned on, or you're just watching our community tab for the announcement as to when that's going to happen. And now, without any further ado, we finally reach the end and a new beginning. Fazbear Entertainment. There is no need for you to return to work next week, as Fazbear Entertainment is no longer a corporate entity that's been paid. All assets reached the company was outright dissolved. Even the memories of the horror that happened there started to fade away in the public consciousness. The people were gone too. William was dead. Henry was gone. A whole generation of young Emilys and Aftons had lost their lives to the horrors of the pizzeria. All of them collateral damage to the device. Everyone the company had ever touched was dead and gone. Well, all except one.
Pay your child support, you deadbeat! I'm keeping the diamond ring. I also set the house on fire!
Clara Afton. She'd been there in the early days, back when things with William were good. They'd had the perfect home, the thriving business, the ideal family. But shortly after their youngest son died, things started to change. William had become distant, lost in his work, obsessive. She had watched him change from this irritatingly brilliant man that she had fallen in love with to a drunken monster struggling to hold himself together. And despite her trying to reach out to him in those desperate days, he was just too far gone. footnote in his history. And that was fine for her. She wanted to leave that part behind. She tried to move forward, never wanting to hear the name Freddy Fazbear again. A time defined by mistakes and broken promises. But then, the paperwork started to arrive. As Fazbear Entertainment began to close as a corporate entity, suddenly her mail was flooded with notifications, requests, obligations. She had been there since the beginning, helping William in the early days of his business, and now, as a shareholder and sole living member of the Afton family, all copyrights and trademarks of both Afton Robotics and Fazbear Entertainment passed on to her. Memories of this past life that she had long left behind. Looking at the blueprints, contracts, the memos, she felt old wounds begin to reopen. The regrets of a happy family that had been poured away from her. William had always been brilliant. That's what had attracted her to him in the first place. But he'd also been too blinded by obsession. Pride. He was too jealous, too petty, too unable to actually see a bigger picture. But now, holding the paperwork that contained decades of heartbreak and trauma, she realized it was her turn. She was holding the power. This was her chance. And one thought resonated in her head. I will put them back together. I will put them all back together. She would be the one to rebuild this family. To rebuild the pieces of that shattered life. To reclaim the kids that Fazbear had stolen from her. But how? Looking at William's work now laid out before her, she knew that he had been onto something. Collecting remnant, robotic humanoids, digital conscience transference. The pieces were all in place. They were just scattered, fragmented. It was almost like there were too many ideas going in too many different directions. It was such an important idea that she reiterated that point to herself. There were too many ideas going in too many different directions. That said, there had to be a way to save it all. She just needed to put it all back together. But how? To rebuild her family, she would first need to rebuild the franchise that had stolen them away from her. With ownership over the characters, their licenses, the technology patents, and the Fazbear name, she converted the corporation back to an LLC, a structure for smaller businesses that are usually family-owned. The irony was fitting. From there, she would need remnant, and lots of it. Remnant was the key. Clearly, in the later years of his life, William had been using Circus Babies Entertainment and Rentals as a remnant farm. Kids' birthday parties in hopes of nabbing bits of the stuff here and there. But clearly, it wasn't enough. He had, what, like 4, maybe 5 animatronics going out every week? It was a decent idea, but to get the remnant they required, it needed scale. Dozens, hundreds of animatronics, all
Seriously?
out there, all gathering remnant from unsuspecting customers. But to do that would require help, something William would never ask for. William had kept everything in-house. His obsession with control limited him. Clara, though, she wasn't nearly that precious. A plan like this required partners, people outside of Fazbear to do the heavy lifting. So she contacted a mid-sized delivery company, DLZ Shipping Solutions, to help build replicas of all the original animatronics. And with meal delivery apps being all the rage, why not an animatronic delivery service? Order one to celebrate your birthday, your Halloween party. How about a 4th of July picnic? We'll invite Liberty Chica and 4th of July Freddy on over. She would make sure that they made skins for every occasion. Chocolate Bonnies for Easter, Shamrock Freddies for St. Patrick's Day, Dia de los Muertos Chicas. And thus, the Fazbear Funtime service was born.
That's right. With the Fazbear Funtime service, you'll never be alone again. You'll always have someone watching your back.
Was it ridiculous? Absolutely. Was it a sellout? No doubt. It was exactly the sort of thing that William would have hated, but it needed to be done to get enough remnant. Normally, the novelty of ordering an animatronic wore off after, like, what, 1, maybe 2 times? But with new skins for new holidays, suddenly you had yourself an animatronic perfect for every occasion. It would keep people hooked. It would keep them ordering the latest and greatest that Fazbear Entertainment LLC had to offer. And all the while, they'd be collecting and returning the remnant back to her. In a word, it was brilliant. There was just one problem with it. No one trusted the Fazbear name. The company's brand was still mud in the public eye. No one would want to hire animatronics from the restaurant franchise known for murdering children. Nothing kills a party quite like the threat of death, you know. So she needed to find ways to credit the stories that had come before. She needed to win back the public affections, reactivate some nostalgia for the spooky stories of their childhood. She needed a game. Multiple games, in fact.
They lied to us. They lied to all of us. They told us that the whole point of this VR game was to undo the bad PR done by a rogue indie game developer. But that's not true at all. Those indie games are designed to conceal and make light of what happened. This isn't just an attempt to rebrand. It's an elaborate cover-up.
Struggling game developers were a dime a dozen. Most working up the magnet between kids and the Dollar General. So we found a way to see it. Found a obscurity.
Oh, damn it, I have some big ones in here. I didn't even realize. There, have a skull. That'll work. More eyeballs. Where's the other box? Eyeballs. There we go. What happened to the gold one?
Her husband's twisted history of serial murder. Freddy Fazbear's things were going shockingly well. Takeover and
I swear I was just looking at it. It was in this. I don't see it here. What? Body work. Unless it does something with it.
A place that got people talking and checking out the latest Fazbear products.
I only have one I can do anyway.
It was finally time to stage. It was time to get to her real goal, literally rebuilding her family. March 2035. The first was obvious. Crying child. One that was bursting incredibly. She'd seen down in his bunker that William had gotten very close to replicating artificial humans using animatronic technology. So that's exactly what she would do. Rebuild her boy from the ground up using robotic parts. With Shaggy.
You don't have to be a mind reader to know that inside all their heads is one thought. I'm gonna need a minute. The delicious dilemma, featuring more value than you.
Shaggy brown hair, his favorite striped shirt, even down to small details that no one would notice, like the band-aid on his left. Williams researched and even found ways of making animatronics that could bleed and
I
process
could use a screwdriver. It might be faster.
He would never have any idea of what he actually was unless he was explicitly told. The only things that could possibly ruin the illusion were any overrides to his internal systems. If someone were to, say, interfere with the cameras that he had in his eyes, or cause some sort of a core reboot to his hard drive, or x-ray his metallic bones, then yeah, he would be exposed. But otherwise, to the outside world, he was just your typical normal human boy. She worked down in the bowels of the Pizzaplex giving him life, but it was one thing to build him. It was another to help him remember his identity. He died so young, so early in their history that there was no preserved memories, no documentation that she could just download into his digital brain. She tried forcing him to remember who he was. In a corner of the room, she even made a makeshift dinner table, a reminder of their family. Family recreated 2 brothers, a sister, father, and mother at the head of the table. The one in charge, the one in command, the one bringing all of this to fruition. But his progress was admittedly slower than she would have liked. At first, he could only communicate through simple ones and zeros, then rudimentary drawings and crude letters. But bit by bit, images of his past life started to come through. Balloons, colors, houses, bears, faces, birthday parties. All for me. Gregory was alive. As the robot boy embraced her, she felt the warmth that she hadn't in decades. This was the joy that she'd been working towards. This was what it was all for. Her son, back in her arms again. The plan was working. It was going. Next was William. The family was truly going to be put together. She would need him. And she knew exactly where he was. The ruins of the
Nope. And I don't know where the
That's specifically why she had
the small drill bits parts are.
over the sinkhole. That's the place to hide
Like a small set of screwdrivers.
entire operation. Digging through the wreckage, she found it. It was right where she thought it would be. Seeing the putrid shell of the was not something she would compare to. The rotting corpse of Willie Matthews.
Nope.
Fur-lined, hollow black sockets were eyes. A smell that reeked of burning.
Well, I guess I'm gonna keep using the tweezers. Fuck.
How far this brilliant man had fallen. It was clear that her work was put out for her. Afton was practically lifeless. The man may not have been able to die, but he was about as close as you could come. His body would need a lot of reconstruction. Replacement arms and endoskeleton reinforcements were the top priority, being pulled from their new line of Glamrock animatronics. You'd have to see if they had any spare body parts lying around that they could steal. In the meantime, though, she threw the husk that was once her husband into a life support pod infused with aerosolized remnant to help keep him stable. But more important than recovering his body was recovering his mind. In his current state, he was comatose, an empty shell. Severe brain damage starts at temperatures over 108 degrees Fahrenheit. 42 degrees Celsius, and years of repeated fires had burned his brain to goo. Gone was the brilliant, frustrating mind that had brought her to the first place. But she had a plan. Unlike her darling boy Gregory, Afton had found ways to record his consciousness. Fundamentally, the brain is simply a series of electrical connections.
Coming. I'm halfway there. Whew. He couldn't find his food. Did you know?
So why couldn't you replicate that in the form of a standard circuit board? In essence, you could create a digital consciousness. And one thing she knew about William, he was nothing if not cautious. Planner, someone who had backup plans to his backup plans. Sure enough, there it was, buried in piles of old animatronic CPUs, the record of Afton itself. But he needed someone to test it.
Someone was definitely here during the night. It had to have been the client. I mean, they sent us that stuff in the first place with no explanation, told us to scan it, said it would expedite the process so we wouldn't need to program any pathfinding ourselves.
Unlike the other games that she paid to have made in the past, this one had a different purpose. This wasn't about PR, it was about getting William back up and running, spreading his virus to the masses.
You acknowledge that Fazbear Entertainment is not responsible for accidental digital consciousness transference, real-world manifestations of digital characters.
She hired a new developer, Silver Parasol Games, to scan boards and bring her husband into the system. And because of the immersive nature of VR, William's consciousness would be able to merge with the player, giving him a new body, a new agency. There was just one complication. Afton's hold wasn't as powerful as she had hoped. He wasn't able to gain complete control. The first trial run, Jeremy, was so desperate to escape from his grasp that he sliced his own face off with a paper shredder. Messy, Afton's followers were reluctant, to say the least, but it was the second attempt that looked like it had the potential to kill two birds with one stone. Enter Vanessa. Mrs. Afton wanted a surrogate daughter. Her darling Elizabeth would have been a young woman as perfect as she had been. Sarah wanted someone who wasn't Elizabeth, but could be just like her. Could she have just rebuilt her like Gregory? Sure, but she decided against it because she wanted an actual human mother-daughter connection. Well, that, and it would be redundant and narratively unsatisfying to have two robot kids in the same family. What could she say? William had put a lot of tools on the table for her to use, and she was planning on using them all. Plus, Elizabeth had always been so loyal to Daddy. It was time to give her a second chance, a true choice. And Vanessa seemed to be the perfect candidate to fill the role.
Your dad's name was Bill. Your dad didn't play it here, did he? Bad in court. He manipulated you. I know your mum. After she lost the custody case.
She started as a QA tester at Silver Parasol Games, the VR game development company that more importantly, Vanessa checked all the red boxes. The right age, blonde, green eyes, wanted to say, "Dear old Daddy." This is the real Elizabeth would have wanted.
I will make you proud, Dad.
While testing the VR game, William's digital consciousness merged with Vanessa. Oh sure, she fought, fragmenting Afton's code into a series of tapes hidden across the game, trying to do web searches to regain control of her life, but it wasn't enough. She was weaker.
I didn't mean to do that much.
That, despite occasional moments of lucidity, had to obey. And with Vanessa, it was a 2-for-1 deal. She was getting a daughter back while also bringing her husband one step closer to reactivation. She just had to make sure that Vanessa was headed the right way. The reborn Gregory was an expert hacker, part of the benefits of being an Afton robot. So Clara had to keep tabs on Vanessa, hacking into her emails and trailing her therapy sessions to ensure the future Elizabeth was falling in line. If any of the therapists started to ask too many questions, they were promptly dismissed from their positions. And while Gregory kept tabs on Vanessa's personal life, Mrs. Afton made sure to clear a path for her professionally. With silver parasols collapse at the hands of the anomaly, she then had the possessed Vanessa bring the contaminated boards to DLC shipping, the Fazbear Funtime service. More glitches, more Remnant, more Afton. But it was her last move that was the best. In a true masterpiece of poetry, she brought Vanessa over to be chief security officer at the Pizza Place. A true family tradition to don the hat and badge, and all it took was a recommendation from the job as well as some emails marked for deletion. Sure, Vanessa didn't have relevant experience for the job, but when it comes directly from the CEO, does it really matter? Husband, son, daughter. Corpse, a robot, a human. All that was left was Michael. The boy that killed her youngest. One that would spend years trying to make his guilty conscience right again. A self-professed protector. While she knew she needed him to complete the family, something told her that the problem had already solved itself. Something had shifted, using Glamrock Freddy to excavate the buried pizza place.
I have changed. My friends are here, but I can protect you.
Maybe it was the remnant that had coursed through Michael's veins. Maybe it was the spirit of Michael living on as a protector. But he was there, somewhere inside of Glamrock Freddy. She could feel it. Just like that, she'd won. She'd done it. Sure, there were still some things to work out. Some brainwashing of Vanessa, some rehabilitation of William. But they were there. Finally, all together again under one roof. And Afton's reunited. A happy ending. And that's how it could have ended. That's how it should have ended. Had it not been for a few unanticipated developments. For one, something was just wrong with the pizza place. Almost as if the entire building was haunted, possessed. Puppet plushies hiding on ceilings, behind crates, places that they had no earthly way of belonging. Staff bots with greasy tears down their eyes, acting like they were being puppeteered by some sort of a nightmare. Even their sounds had an echo of nightmares long past.
FBI, when big-time pain strikes, target multiple pain receptors. Just so back.
Your best rest starts at Gallery One Furniture. Affordable, comfortable, indulgent. Get a deep, restful sleep starting at $9.99. Shop exclusive collections to find the mattress that's right for you. Gallery One Furniture. Atrium, Dartmouth.
Own a design studio. Get a really cool design contract. Realize you have to do a whole bunch of mathy business work before you can even start the not mathy design work. Use QuickBooks to see the big picture. Use QuickBooks to manage cash flow. Add some more cash to your flow. Let QuickBooks do more of this, so you can do more of the things you love. Intuit QuickBooks. Manage and grow your business all in one place.
It was as though a guardian spirit of the past refused to move on. As long as her husband was around, it too would linger. Only now, it wasn't just in one body, but it was in the essence of the building itself. She had seen stories of houses built on burial grounds getting possessed by angry spirits, but she'd never assumed that it could be real. Then again, in a world of living spirit metal and mind-controlling glitches, who was she to be so judgmental? The whole thing was ridiculous. Why would this be the line that she refused to cross? After all, the Pizzaplex was built over the burial ground of angry spirits, but it was the power cords that finally convinced her that something was wrong. Suddenly, these cords were striped black. black and white, like the security puppet from generations ago. The very foundations of this place, the materials and wires that constituted it, were rebelling against her, against the Aftons, against the quest to bring them all together. And it was being helped by something else, something slithering through the building. If they were connected, she couldn't be sure, but a blob of living wires could be heard oozing through the walls, stealing pieces and parts of the old animatronics showcased in Rockstar Row. She could only assume that it was a byproduct of all the remnant they'd been collecting. From Afton's testing, she knew that both light and dark remnant existed, one of positive emotions and the other created from anguish, anger, agony. Perhaps this thing was an amalgamation of all the darkest parts of Pizzeria's history, a collection of the hatred still housed inside these defunct endoskeletons and exosuits. As long as it was left alone, it seemed to be harmless, but if any Afton outside of Michael got too close, it would lash out wildly. Even young Gregory, looking to punish the family that had been complicit in its horrible creation. Little did she know, though, that Gregory should have been her biggest concern, that bringing the family together would have some unforeseen consequences. Gregory was normally the goodest of boys. She had literally built him that way. But lately, he'd been disappearing more and more often, disobeying her orders, requests. She knew that he loved playing on the arcade machines once the Pizzaplex closed, being so good as to top the leaderboard on practically all of them. But lately, he was nowhere to be found. She suspected his absence had to do with Glamrock Freddy's failed performance the other night. He malfunctioned live on stage, almost as though the core programming of Freddy responded to seeing this rebuilt small boy. Almost like it awakened something inside of him. She'd have to make sure that Vanessa was on the lookout for him. But she'd soon come to learn that Vanessa wasn't enough. Whether it was the influence of the Movement puppet or a reawakened hatred of animatronics seeped deep in Gregory's code, something had caused him to rebel, to rip apart each animatronic in the Pizzaplex.
I should wait till this dries before I make a really big one.
So painstakingly built, freeing Vanessa from her mind control, destroying the remains of Afton in the basement, setting Glamrock Freddy loose. As her carefully created world crumbled around her one more time, she began to plot revenge. She would have to bring them all to ruin. And there you have it, my friends, nearly a decade in the making, my FNAF timeline for where the franchise is here in 2023. Year of Fazbear Frights, by the way. As always, it wouldn't be right for me to finish without going over the more controversial takes that we just handed out.
You're gonna go sit to the side for a minute.
So let me just break down some of the major points. First of all, the biggest swing of this episode, and obviously the one that everything else rests on, is Afton being the CEO of Fazbear Entertainment LLC. Here's why I went with this route. Now, first and foremost, the head of Fazbear Entertainment is the single biggest mystery that we're meant to solve at this point in the world. The Ultimate Guy brings it up repeatedly. He's running the show. He's okaying these decisions. And in the security breach memos, we get multiple mentions of someone manipulating things from the top down. Whoever this is, they are the person driving forward every other fast late-stage role here. They're the puppet master who's clearing the indie debt. They're the ones relaunching the brand, building the Pizzaplex over the burial ground. So everything at the end of the timeline relies on this one singular answer. Now, as I see it, there are two possibilities. One, an adult robot Elizabeth, which is the bigger version of the kids in the fourth closet, or Mrs. Ashley. Could it be someone completely new to the franchise? Absolutely yes. But in a game with so many recurring pieces and repeating themes, it's pretty random and arbitrary. So between these two girls,
oh no, there's another one.
always wants to please her daddy, so she's the most likely to but then what's Vanessa? Vanessa is clearly meant to be a parallel for Elizabeth. Same hair, same eyes, similar backstories, but if the main goal is getting the Clifton family back together, it seems to clearly be the case in Security Breach, then there's no need for Vanessa to be involved at all. We already have Elizabeth running the show. It would also mean that we suddenly have two robot kids running around, which feels narratively repetitive and Now look at Mrs. Afton. We know next to nothing about her outside of any clues that we can get from Immortal and the Restless and Valdora's song. But what her being head of Fazbear does is make every other piece of the lore fit. Suddenly, you can have one of every other type of character. One robot kid in Gregory, one brainwashed human in Elizabeth/Vanessa, one OG corpse in William, and one possessed animatronic in Mike. Narratively, it makes everything else cleaner. Legally, it's also the option that makes no sense. As I call out my narrative, she would likely have some stake in the original company and all of its assets. So as Fazbear folds as a company, I suspect a lot of it will return back to her. But there was one clue that really sold me on this particular direction, and that was this right here, in the Post-it read. The big lore central of Security Breach, a dinner table scene with the whole family, including the mother. And not only is she there, she is at the head of that table, the position of highest honor and responsibility. She is the one in charge, with William being relegated off to the side. That one scene shows that we have to include Mom in there somewhere, and the only place it makes sense for her to be is at the top. Now, there is one big dilemma with my interpretation of all this. The only guy who really seems to point out that Fazbear doesn't want the glitch trap virus to spread. They call out one particular email in FNAF AR where the legal team calls a cease and desist all action outstanding circuit boards. And even in FNAF VR, we're told that the circuit boards get stolen back by the client, presumably once they realize what danger is on them, trying to stop glitch trap before he spreads and gets out of hand. Here's the problem with that though, is if Fazbear doesn't want Afton to rise again, why'd they restart the movie in the first place? Why'd they build over the
shit, my message, my friend.
Vanessa, an important part of the company, just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It would be the most inconsistent series of action ever, but I did want to call attention to it since it seems to be the route that the official guide is trying to steer us towards. Moving on to minor point number one, the Five Nights at Freddy's games were made by the Rogue indie developer. Here's the thing, FNAF VR opens with this line.
Oopsie. Hello?
The phone case off, I don't know.
The phone did what?
I said I took the phone case off.
Okay.
I don't know if it did anything or it's just our imagination.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah. Make sure I get up in the morning for I have to go for my test tomorrow.
I have my alarm set for you. Yeah, yep.
Okay, what else is going on?
Nothing. I'm in the basement putting things together.
It didn't rain here at all.
I was mowing and I could feel a little sprinkle. I'm like, I'll go as far as I can. And then I got by the barn and everything just opened up. So I drove right up.
I can't hear you.
I said I got the lawn mowed.
Yeah, I'm losing.
Yeah, you're skipping.
Okay, call me in the morning.
All right, good night. Love you.
Okay, night, love you.
Night, love you too. It's my mommy. How is the battery on this? 56. So you are dying. All right. Plug you back in. You're not doing anything, so you can just sit for a minute. I don't have arms. I use those for another project. I fucking swear I saw a gold one in there. I'm losing my mind. Fossils. Alright. I'm gonna need to wash my hands, so I'm gonna be right back. Lights? Yep, see, what did I hit? I don't remember. Okay, so no polymer clay on this.
Today we end the horror. Today we solve FNAF. Wait, didn't we say this exact same thing 7 years ago?
Alright, I'm gonna go back now.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, the show that reminds you that if you click the like button hard enough, it'll send a DJ Music Man to your neighborhood for a block party. Go ahead, try it. Hit that like button. Didn't work? Have you tried clicking subscribe? I hear that sometimes works too. I guess you must not be clicking hard enough. I don't know what to tell you. Speaking of not working hard enough, aren't you tired of just plain boring merch? The kind that you buy and sure, it looks cool, but it just sits there on your body not doing anything interesting. Well, what if your merch was actually a puzzle? Introducing the world's first Quest jacket. I know what you're thinking. A denim jacket isn't anything revolutionary, and you would largely be right, except you'd also be missing one of the most crucial details. Those patches, they're not just any old D&D style patches, they're clues to help you solve a much bigger puzzle that exists inside of this thing. It's not just a jacket, it's the world's first ARG jacket. You heard that right, a world first. It's not every day that you create like the first of something, but to all my research, I don't think a product like this has ever existed. We've actually been working for the past 2 years to make something like this happen, working with garment manufacturers to sew secrets into places that they've never even thought about before. Obviously, I don't want to give too much away because part of the fun is letting you guys solve this for yourself, but we've pulled out all the stops to give you a piece of clothing that you can actually experience. This thing is premium to the max. And if you manage to solve it, you get a special final patch to show that you are truly the puzzle master. So go ahead, head on down to the description and be a part of history. Grab yourself the first ever piece of ARG clothing and what will be the first in our series of Quest jackets. Roll an investigation check to see if you got what it takes. Today we finish milking, I mean covering the major mysteries of Security Breach. And you know what? I think I solved it. Or at least I think I've solved most of it. 7 years ago I made this video, The Clue That Solves Five Nights at Freddy's, where we put together all the pieces to support Dream Theory, the concept that the first 4 games of the series were all a collection of nightmares happening inside the mind of a child. In that episode, there were lots of points of evidence, but ultimately the conclusion hinged on one key design detail, the alarm that brought each night to a close at 6 o'clock a.m., a grandfather clock for 3 games, and a digital clock for number 4. 3 games at the crying child's house where we see a grandfather clock, the 4th in a hospital right before he dies, which, ironically enough, is one of his gameplay is happening in the
Hi! Hi, Nadia. Nadia? If I pronounce that right, probably not. I am working on this tonight. Trying to finish up some projects so I have a convention in like a week or so I am completely and utterly fucked.
Vanessa, and we've covered a lot of evidence trying to support that claim. The character's design, colors, the ice cream.
So I'm trying to finish up some of my quicker projects.
Narrative art that provides the game's 3-star ending. I mean, it's a lot. There are 2 episodes that are jam-packed full of discussion around exactly this. But today, I finally have my smoking gun. The clue that takes it from just a controversial theory to, at least in my mind, largely proven fact. Just like with the clocks and the dream theory, it's the one clue that is so specific, so intentional that it confirms that this was the main intent of the game. Until, of course, they decide to retcon it all due to bad audience feedback to keep the franchise going for another 7 years. Sorry, guys, I hate to say it. I think I'm unfortunately right this time. Gregory is a robot, and he's the crying child reborn. And by the end of the day, I think you're going to be convinced. And then from there, we're going to talk about how all of that factors into the game's narrative and its final mystery, Patient 46.
Yeah, nice glossy eyeball.
After exploring the sewers to decondition Chica, Gregory winds up here. A room full of glowing staff pod heads and lots of post-it reminders on literally every surface. I mean,
Okay, so for all extensive purposes, that is done. That one's done. So that'll give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one won't be able to finish till tomorrow, probably.
What is this? What are we looking at here? I think it's pretty obvious. Yeah? Is it obvious, Matt? What is it?
You get to a certain age, and you have to start taking notes.
Post-it notes?
Yeah, you just leave them around.
Okay.
And also there's robot heads.
So with that incredible insight, I spent literal hours off camera trying to look at every single post-it note to make sure that I had the full picture. And the answer I got was, do not do that. Learn from my mistakes. It took me so long, only to discover that the game files had been dug up and the post-it textures were just there in 3 simple images. Thanks to Just Xspot for uploading these to GitHub. Flush those hours of my life down the toilet. When you study these post-it textures, you actually realize that there are post-it notes.
Oh, thank you. Is it Monday? Yeah.
And the final where they become nearly perfect.
I have been in a gallery before. Kinda, sorta, maybe.
Here with a note written in
Here we
binary.
go.
When you first enter, there's a cardboard which, if I were to guess, is Steel Wool trying to draw our attention to the most important post-it clues in what otherwise is a very crowded and busy-looking room. On it, we get this binary string, which translates to "Why is I?" That's it. The grammar, I think, is intentionally bad because this is a computer coming into consciousness, asking the question, "Why am I alive?" and doing it written in binary, the language of machines, computers, robots. Elsewhere in the room is more binary that translates to hide. Whatever this thing is, it's scared and it's confused. It hides until it can better understand what or who it's meant to be.
Yeah, I've made a mistake. Made a mistake.
Kids love random glimpses of memories coming into focus. The phrase "I can feel it" is this creature coming into consciousness.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight.
Which looks like Afton
Oh no.
In short, it appears to be a machine that
Do you sell it later or do you collect it? Artwork? I have quite a bit of artwork, yeah. I usually pick it up when I go to conventions and stuff. And I do sell. I don't keep. No, I have like 2 or 3 pieces that I've made over the years that I've kept. But mostly I make everything to sell because nothing really, like, I'll like something and I'll maybe hold on to it for a few months, but that's about it. I don't, like, you know, make things for me unless it's something useful.
smoking gun, my friends, and it all boils down to a present alongside 3 simple words, all for me.
Oh, bonjour, tu parles français? Je parle un peu de français, mais pas beaucoup. Ok. Canada français. Oui, oui, tout de suite.
Spices were just too good.
You're gonna need a bigger truck.
Low prices, guaranteed.
How is it only Tuesday? Jackson won't wear pants, and Emma thinks that's art. Yet Dave just crunches on oatmeal crisp. Wait a minute.
Each year, thousands of adults lose their shred. These symptoms tell a dark truth. But with the new Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4, you can get your shred back. Pre-order Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 and play the
I thought Tony Hawk would have been replaced by now. And what I mean by that is, like, well, there's Wayne Gretzky, for example, and then there was the one from Nova Scotia there. You know, like, there's always, like, the next one. So I would assume that there would be another big skater person of some kind. Like, there was, like, Michael Jordan, then, you know, Colby. That goes over there. Anyway, I am Polish. I don't read Polish well, but I understand a little English. And I understand French. That's cool. I know French. And I know very little of anything else. I know English, and I know very little of anything else. Like, I could listen to a conversation in French and kind of figure out what they're talking about, but I could not participate in it.
Yellow, green, and red, those are the flashing lights above the Fredbear stage as he gets bit. Or, you know, maybe it's the balloons on the nearby table for someone who can't tell the difference between blue and purple. Even things
I don't have arms. Put the head down here, though, so. Head's the wrong color. Doesn't match the brightness of the bones.
We also see a lot of dialogue running away, just like on the post-it. Digging deeper, we also start to see other patterns emerging. The number 7 shows up repeatedly as both a set of tab marks as well as a set of 6 faces with a smaller 7 one off the side. This ties us directly back to FNAF VR, where we had a glitching purple gravestone for Afton in the middle of 7 normal gravestones. 5 missing children, Charlie the puppet, and the smaller face watching on, crying child. As he says in other notes, all my friends. There's also repeated use of the number 3. 3 faces, 3 kids, words repeated 3 times, like home, 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 and fun, fun, fun. 3 slices of pizza, 3 presents, even just counting to
Do I have a bigger little skull? I don't think I do. Now, someone's gonna think it's just the cat's meow. Oh, fuck. Just splattered all that.
Together isn't a post-it note, but instead the table higher up in the room where we see the staff bots arranged like a family at dinner. A mother and a father alongside their 3 kids. 1 red-headed pig-tailed kid, 1 boy, and a kid with his head bit off. And just to hammer it all home, in the middle of the table, the collectible is a poster for Fredbear's Family Diner. The place of the fight. The place where all of this began. It looks like the robot finally figured out who he was, and he started to recreate his family. The robot is the crime guy, which by proxy that has to be Gregory. And if you need further proof of humanoid robots in the game, Illy Becky on Reddit caught this detail from Sister Location. Humanoid heads, ones that look very similar to Gregory's face. Oh, and the last thing, much to everyone's excitement, there's actually a new book series coming out later this year. A new season of Fazbear Frights called Tales from the Pizzaplex, obviously referencing the location in Security Breach. The cover of the first book of the new series, Robot Kid. There it is. Which leads us then to the last puzzle of Security Breach, the retro CDs. For those of you who don't know, there are 16 CDs around the map that you can only find once you've upgraded Freddy's eyes. From there, you take the CDs to a hidden room designed to look exactly like Mike's room from Sister Location. These CDs seem to be recordings of therapy sessions for 2 patients. Patient 71, who we mentioned last time is clearly Vanessa, and patient 46, who we never get to hear speak. And over the course of the various sessions, 46 and 71 are set up to be direct opposites of each other. Vanessa likes flowers, patient 46 does not.
Here I goes. The janitor on this floor has a garden and has been putting bouquets in the offices here for years. What's the problem? Oh, the flowers? I'll move them.
Vanessa likes blue skies and doesn't like dark basements. 46 prefers it dark.
I like the blue sky. I don't like dark basements. Oh, right. Too bright. It feels like we're in a cubby hole or a cave.
Alright, back to drawing. And you need to go somewhere I won't leave you.
Thank you. Goes out there 5 calories a piece. Sure. You can have a candy.
Clearly, we're meant to see these characters as
I
opposites.
do not have a bigger skull. I have everything else, except for the skull, apparently.
Alter ego possesses by Glitchtrap. Or, even more extreme,
Alright.
Vanessa's evil twin sister, considering the clear ending shows us a dead Fanny on the ground and Vanessa looking down from the burning building's roof. But let's quickly talk about those two interpretations. First of all, Vanessa and Vanny are the same person. They have to be. All the evidence leading up to this game in places like
Alright, where am I? I guess I'm gonna put it in this cup. There it is!
And in this game, we still have
I knew it.
For instance, in the CDs, we learned that Vanessa
I knew I had another skeleton.
the Vanny costume.
Costume.
Oh, when did I fuck that up? There it is.
If she's not the one wearing it, why would she be making it? To me, the fire ending here is meant to be symbolic. We haven't been
Alright.
yet, so Vanessa's spirit is still trapped inside that burning building. Her body has died. She is one person. But could the person abandon actually be patient 46? Again, the evidence just doesn't add up to that. Throughout their session,
Alright, so where are we now? Recap. 3 fairies, 2 skeletons. That's all I've got fucking done.
I could be putting the corners in a town road. Yeah, you think that's funny, huh?
And again here.
It always leads to a feeling of loss. It's a hole that feels right?
The way they explain simple words.
And I'm surprised by your knowledge of computers. You're something of a phenomenon. Do you know what that word means? It means you have unusual skill, like a hacker.
The way they point out that 46 doesn't fit into the chair.
That chair doesn't really fit you, does it?
They even mention the fact that they specifically work with children.
People of all ages, from little kids to the very elderly.
I understand the therapists who want to treat ulcers as they see themselves, but this just doesn't seem to fit. At no point do we get an indication that Vanny sees herself as a child. But now let's go back to what we assume we know about 46. They're a kid, they like the dark, they like candy, they're really good computers. In fact, they're a bit robotic themselves, answering questions in cold, detached ways.
When I read your account of what happened, it came across as, well, more of an objective rather than a subjective narrative. Oh, sorry. You don't know what that means, do you?
Here again, we get another example of the therapist having to explain a relatively simple word. Now, look at our post-it room. It's a dark cave underground, outright labeled as "This is my home." On the central cardboard box is a drawing of candy. And a robot would be emotionally detached and would also be great at hacking. Heck, the therapist does tell patient 46 to write down their feelings.
I suggested you write down exactly what made you so sad and scared.
And if this room isn't an example of that, what is? Taking it one step further, if I'm right in saying that Gregory is indeed the robot that came into consciousness here, that's why he doesn't fit into the chair. He's a kid. That's also the reason Steel Wool couldn't let us hear his voice throughout these therapist tapes. It would give away the game. It would immediately take away the mystery. Is since we hear Gregory talk so much. But why would Gregory, a robot kid hiding out in the Pizzaplex, actively be seeking out therapy? He's not in a school of any kind. So it wouldn't be mandated. What is going on here? Well, over the
I think these ones are going to go here. These ones are going to go here. Yellow could also take these. Maybe I'll do yellow for these. You're getting these. Who's going to take red?
If you track the tapes, each therapist ends up getting killed off immediately after they start asking about encrypted messages that she's been receiving from the mysterious.
No, you're getting yellow. Yellow. You're getting yellow. You're getting red. You're getting really tiny ones.
We've transcripts, and I've read them.
Dead the next session.
The messages you're getting seem very manipulative in nature. You know.
Purple. You're getting purple.
Why would you open up about it? These are full of details about your life.
Again, dead the next session. When the encrypted messages get brought up before the test, same thing.
When I saw some of your recent encrypted conversation logs, at first I thought I was looking at more examples of you just talking with yourself. And then I realized it was different. When I study this, it seems like there is someone else who's
A third therapist bites the dust. The therapists cover all sorts of topics. Bad childhoods, work history. One therapist even confronts patient 46 with all the other dead therapists. Nothing. No response. It's only once the encrypted messages come up that they're suddenly marked for death. We also know that it's 46 doing the killing here. The dead therapists are a complete surprise to Vanessa.
Hi. Go ahead. Sit down. I don't know you. What happened to... Oh, we'll get to know each other another time.
But the 46, just business as usual.
I just why don't you come back to this another day? You're shaking
He's shaking his head because he knows that now she is also marked for death. To me, all of this screams of 46 keeping tabs on Vanessa. He's going to therapy not for himself, but rather to follow her actions, making sure that she's not saying anything that she shouldn't about these encrypted messages. And when the therapists do get too close to the truth, they're bumped off. We learned in one of the last CDs that patient 46 isn't being manipulated, but is instead the one doing the manipulation.
I don't think you're being manipulated here. I think you're the one doing the manipulating. No comment? Huh?
Putting 2 and 2 together would tell us that patient 46 is the one communicating with Vanessa. He's controlling her life for some reason. In fact, 46 appears to be the reason Vanessa is working. One odd thing about in-game messages is that Vanessa was not supposed to get the security. The message was, we see that Vanessa
I'm gonna have to sort through these for matching pairs.
Yep, she's hired anyway, despite, as it says in another message, no prior qualifications. In both internal reference coming from the
I want something that size.
job, someone has brought Vanessa here for a specific purpose. And in short, it looks like Gregory is manipulating the situation, determined to get Vanessa to work at the Pizza Plex, following her to all of her videos.
I'm gonna have to up my sizes. These are my first ones. First matching. Yep.
He's also not opposed to lying about it.
When I was in the kitchen earlier, I fell into some sort of garbage smasher.
Is she okay?
Well, she's still functional.
But why? Why is he going to all of this effort? Well, combined with what we saw in the post-it room, there's a family reunion scene. Multiple post-its referring to families, three siblings, their house. Remember what I said earlier? A robot is coming to consciousness and is trying to reclaim what he lost, his family. He wants the family back together, and so he's doing everything in his power to make that happen. Using his hacking skills, he's managed to break into Sapphire, so he knows that there's something off about Vanessa. Maybe he even knows that his dad's consciousness is inside of her. He's also got his brother and Freddy and his dad in the basement. The family in this game is truly coming together again, reclaiming what Crying Child once lost. And that's it. That's the whole theory, Dub. There are definitely no holes or flaws to anything I just said. Don't look any deeper than everything I just told you. Alright, fine. There might be a few itty holes to all of this explanation. Namely, some of the info that we get from the last 2 CDs. If patient 46 is Gregory, then why is he glitching the system to make all the animatronics scarier? If he lured Vanessa to the Pizza Plex, why would he then be avoiding her throughout the game? Why would he be surprised to see Afton in the basement if he's trying to bring the family all together? There's also the mystery of the whole parent story. 46 is said to have good parents.
None of what you said in your file about your parents was true. The truth is, you had great parents. A great childhood. Why did you lie?
But how would records of good parenting exist for a robot who presumably had no parents? Or the Crying Child, whose records presumably would say that he was dead? Or even if you don't believe those theories, if 46 is Gregory and Gregory's just a homeless kid, that doesn't sound like he would have had a great childhood or any sort of home life. But the kicker, the one to me that makes this really difficult to explain, is this email that I had long forgotten about from FNAF AR. Strap in for this one, friends. Hey Ness, I hope things are good. I saw you ordered 3 lifelike human male rubber masks, and I was dying to ask what they were. Sounds to me like a robot kid is confirmed, but it also sounds to me like Vanessa built it or gave rise to this robot kid. If so, then I ask again, why would Gregory be avoiding her throughout the game? I mean, best I could come up with is that somehow Gregory escaped and is now convinced that Vanessa is trying to shut him down because of his rogue programming. I mean, it's not a bad idea, but then why would he be luring her to the Pizza Plex? It's like one half of each explanation works, but then when you try to connect it back with like the other half of the theory, they end up contradicting each other, which is really fascinating. There are 2 other options. First, the robot kid from the post-it room is entirely brand new. Or the second option is someone that we never see in the game, Baby. Now, the first option of a brand new character, yeah, cool, I guess. I can't really speculate about that. It could literally go anywhere and solve everything. As for option 2, Baby, just like with Gregory, there are certain things that spread the aphid virus to make the animatronics scary in order to bring Daddy back.
Oh, are you fucking with me?
Illusion discs, or if she
Your tiny purple young jackalope. Oh, sorry, I didn't see any more text. Goodbye. Thanks, Nadia, for stopping in.
disguises, just like
Sorry, I didn't see you leave.
Like a disguise? Yeah, I can see that. You like the idea of being disguised? Disguises let you be sort of invisible, don't they?
There's also a line about being able to see patient 46's eyes.
That's better. On this side of the desk, I can see your eyes.
And we know that baby's eye color has always been an important detail in the past. But as with Gregory, there are still a number of holes with this line of thinking. Baby/Elizabeth likes flowers. Patient 46 doesn't. We also know baby hates being in the basement of sister location. So then why, as patient 46, would she prefer to live in a cave rather than blue sky? In short, as I wrap up my overall coverage of Security Breach, I guess I gotta summarize it like this. This game is frustrating from a lore standpoint. Smaller questions like Glamrock Bonnie and Golden Freddy, yeah, those are pretty easy to answer. But when it comes to what this game was actually about, no one theory actually solves it all in a clean way. There are references to every corner of the FNAF universe in here, but as a result, nothing fits cleanly together to solve everything.
I'm hearing some noises from upstairs. I gotta go check that out. Very back.
Is here based on the post-it room? Yes, absolutely. Is he Gregory? I mean, right now, I think that he's our best option. Is he also patient 46? He's trying to be, but there are just a lot of holes there. And there are holes in the baby theory, too. And that honestly just leaves the option of a mysterious third party trends behind the scenes, which on one hand would be welcome. I'd love to see a new character inserted into this lore. But on the other hand, it also feels unsatisfying because it's like, well, that came out of nowhere. This franchise has never operated like that, so it feels weird for it to start acting that way now. Individually, small pieces of the mystery make sense, but when you take a step back and look at the wider lore of this series, how it connects to other games, how it connects to the wider story arc that's been created, that's when things start to fall apart. And I think that is what is so frustrating with this title. So that's what I'm left with. Let me know what your thoughts are. Are you seeing things that I'm not? Hopefully it at least sparked some ideas in your head. And hey, if it did, you can let me know live right now. I am officially live with other members of Team Theorist, other FNAF tubers, all of us covering things about this game. My hot takes on the Security Breach lore, other theories that we haven't covered yet, and of course, just generally chatting about what we thought of the game, where we think the franchise is going, and what we predict will be the upcoming DLC. Nothing is off the table, friends. So if you have FNAF theories yourself, throw them out there and we can discuss them live. Link is down in the description right now. Stop on by, join us for some good old fashioned.
I forgot what day it was. It's Canada Day. That's fireworks I'm hearing in the distance.
First of its kind Quest jacket. There's a very limited number of these available because it was very costly to make them. So if you want your hands on the first ever puzzle jacket, make sure you're checking
You know what?
it
I'm
out.
not going to cut that because that'll have the whole back of. Alright, Little Jackalope's done.
A game theory. Thanks for watching.
Own a design studio. Get a really cool design contract. Realize you have to do a whole bunch of mathy business work before you can even start the Mount Matthew design work. Use QuickBooks to see the big picture. Use QuickBooks to manage cash flow. Add some more cash to your flow. QuickBooks do more of this. So you can do more of the things you love. Intuit QuickBooks. Manage and grow your business all in one place.
With IXL, there's an endless number of skills that match exactly what my kids are looking for in class right now. And with so many
Finish this guy while I still have it out.
Never get yes! IXL helps my children learn at their own pace, starting off with easier questions.
God damn it! Stop! It's like spider webs. Ugh.
Children never feel stuck or frustrated. And if they miss a question, it's not a big deal. IXL provides an immediate explanation and a chance to try again.
Missed a little spot. There it is.
See how the fruit
There. Should I change his bow? What do you think?
Internet, welcome to Game Here, the show that is definitely the Today we begin our journey to solve the most anticipated DLC of the year, Security Breach Ruin.
Oh god, I'm done with that. Okay, come on. Ugh. Sure, I'll try that one.
The most important food ingredient is going away for good. Which one am I talking about? Salt? Mustard! Now, the one that ties any meal together. Red 3. So unless you want to go to jail, you better try it now because the US government is about to make Red 3 illegal. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Food Theory, the only show that's truly to die for. Yeah, and that's D-Y-E, because today we're talking about all things food dye. At some point, especially if you live in the United States, you have no doubt picked up your favorite food or drink, turned over the ingredients on the back, and saw a whole suite of colorful dyes we've come to expect on our food. I'm talking red 4, yellow 3, and who could forget about blue 2? You may have seen these ingredients and thought, these sound like they should be coming out of a quarterback's mouth and not going into mine. These are artificial food dyes, and we've been using them for decades to make our food here in the States right, or as toxic as you've come to expect. Unfortunately, the colorful party might be coming to an end soon for one of those precious dyes. In January of this year, the FDA announced that it was revoking its authorization for Red 3, essentially making it banned in all food and drugs in the United States. And I'll be honest, when I heard about this, I was like, that's a good thing. Right? Admittedly, now that I think about it, I don't really know what these dyes are in the first place. Like, I've heard of Red 40 and Yellow 5, but should I be worried about them being in all of my favorite treats? And why is Red 3 specifically getting the axe from it? Well, that is what today's episode aims to get to the bottom of. What are these chemical food dyes? Are they dangerous for us to consume? And most importantly, do we actually need them? Drop your socks and grab your Crocs, loyal theorists, as we dive in to explain America's chemical romance with artificial dyes. Let's kick things off by laying out what these artificial dyes actually are. Obviously, the name partly gives it away. They're food dyes and color additives that are not natural, but artificial. Now, artificial in this case doesn't just mean companies are adding it to food where they aren't naturally found, but that the very chemicals themselves are synthetic or artificially made. They're made like any other chemical by reacting various chemicals together to create a tasteless compound that can make any food colorfy. And these dyes are found in all sorts of processed goods that could use a little splash of red, blue, yellow, or green to brighten their day. From fish and Fruit Loops to yellow rice and even mouthwash. But you know what doesn't have artificial dyes? The sponsor for today's episode, AG1, or as I like to call it, the one responsible decision I make every day. As someone whose diet is roughly 60% chaos and 40% regret, I need to make sure I'm at least getting the vitamins and minerals I need to keep my body going for as long as YouTubely possible. And AG1 has been the thing to support just that. Mainly because I'm lazy and it's literally the easiest thing you can do. I wake up, make myself breakfast, fix myself up a glass, and I'm
It might make my 10 tonight.
I found myself not needing to resort to an afternoon coffee just to keep me going through the end of the day. The best part, it has prebiotics and probiotics that help keep my gut from imploding after eating one too many turkeys or pie cake-ins or whatever monstrosity the internet has me shoveling into my mouth. And listen, I'm not the only one that feels the difference.
Quebec City is my favorite stop when I'm on tour. After a show, I like to relax and unwind. Enjoy life's simple pleasures. Take in the scenery. Sometimes I even step out of my comfort zone. I make sure to savor the moment. Oh, and treat myself to a little souvenir.
Not so head editor Dan actually credits
I'm hungry.
AG1 for helping
I don't want anything.
Isn't that right, Dan?
Me? Do I finally get one?
Ooh,
I think
that
I'm
was all
actually
the
just
time you
thirsty.
had. So don't be like Dan and waste time. If you use the link in the description below or scan the QR code to subscribe, you can save $20 off your first subscription of AG1. And AG1 is throwing in over $70 worth of free stuff too, like a free shaker, a canister for your powder, and 5 free travel packs. So click the link and thank me later while I thank AG1 now for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to Red 4, or 6. What's with 3? Where do these strange color names come from? Why are they called Red 40 and 6? Our old pals at the Food and Drug Administration are to thank for that. In 1938, Congress passed the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, aka the FD&C Act. They gave the relatively new FDA the authority to oversee the safety of, well, food, drugs, and cosmetics, as well as medical devices. Part of this job involved not only cataloging, but every single color additive found in food or cosmetics. And obviously, in this catalog, every additive needed a name. For your natural color additives like dehydrated beets, caramel color, and grape peel skin, they just got to keep their names. But for your artificial dyes, or as the FDA calls them, the certified dyes, they needed a new one. Those certified lover boys, certified color dyes, all get a name and number based on their color. You got yellow 5, red 40, blue 2, and so on and so on. And actually, there are less of these artificial dyes that are approved in the United States than you might have realized. Not 900, not 90, but just 9 are approved to be in our food. There are way more that are allowed in our cosmetics, but I'll save that headache for Amy to tackle later on style theory. The 9 artificial dyes approved for food by the FDA are
I feel like I'm missing a bunny rabbit.
blue 1 and blue 2, green 3, yellow 5 and 6, orange B, and citrus red 2. And even then, that list is a bit inflated because there's a big old asterisk next to the last 2. Orange B is only approved to be used in hot dog and sausage casings. But due to some concerns of contamination back in the 70s, the only that made Orange B said screw it and stopped production, and it hasn't been used ever since. And Citrus Red 2 is only permitted in the color of the skins of oranges. You can't even use it for oranges that are used for orange juice. So, unless you're eating the skins of oranges or 50-year-old wieners like a mad lad, you're unlikely to ever ingest any of those last 2 dyes. And even green 3 isn't used that much anymore, because companies often choose to use a mix of blue and yellow to make their classically green foods instead. But you may be looking at this list and notice a few gaps. If there's a red 3 and a red 4, what about reds 4 through 39? Spoiler alert, they do exist, but all of those quote-unquote missing dyes either never got approval in the first place, or much like red 3 is about to be, they got axed. For example, take red 2, also known as amaranth. It used to be allowed under the FD&C Act. That was until 1976.
I don't think anybody can see from this angle. Let me move this.
Carcinogen. But, to be honest, I would rather have a bottle of potentially carcinogenic food dye than the other amaranth beverage we talked about on this channel before. And so, over time, the list of approved artificial dyes has become smaller and smaller until eventually we were left with the 9, or technically 7, that we have today. Fun fact, the main 7 are also all approved for use in drugs and cosmetics as well. That is, all except for 1. Which of course brings us to our main culprit of today's video. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, Red 3, one of the approved artificial dyes, is losing that approval status. But why? And why now? Well, it all comes down to a little thing known as the Delaney Clause. The Delaney Clause was part of an amendment to the FD&C Act, the one that gave the FDA authority to monitor all this stuff in the first place. Basically, it says, hey, FDA, BP Dubs, if you ever find out that any of these additives are included in anything that cause cancer in humans or animals, you'll ban it, right? And the FDA is like, yup, you got it. And for the past couple decades, that's how it worked. Remember Red 2? And back in the 70s, studies came out that showed that there was an increased risk of cancer in female mice who were given a high dose of Red 2. So the FDA, following the rules of the Delaney Clause, banned it in 1976. Fast forward to the 1980s, and another Red 2 was now facing some heat. Red 3. Similar to 2, Red 3 was shown in high doses to cause a significant increase in thyroid cancer in male rats. And so, after looking into these studies, the FDA in 1990 came out and said, yup, this stuff potentially causes cancer in animals, so we're banning it. And yeah, you heard that right. Despite all the hubbub around it now, Red 3 was already banned 35 years ago. There was just one catch. It was only banned in cosmetics and topical medications like creams. And everyone was like, what about food and ingested drugs? And the FDA was like, yeah, we'll just do that in a separate action. And then it just never did. And so Red 3 continued to be allowed in our food for over 3 decades. And why didn't the FDA do anything? The short answer is, they didn't feel like it. In 1992, the FDA was finally going to get around to banning Red 3 in foods, but they claimed they didn't have the resources to fully enforce enforce it. And so they just didn't. That was until 2022, when a bunch of advocacy groups and scientists petitioned the FDA with a lot more data, and the FDA finally agreed. And boom, with a stroke of a pen, Red 3 will now be phased out of our food and drugs for good.
I wonder how many people have died from that.
But the FDA was a little bit slow to the ball in officially ditching Red 3. And here's where we have to zoom out and look at the rest of the world. Because in the EU, Red 3 is known as E127. While it hasn't been completely banned, it's been heavily regulated since 1994, only allowing it to be used in the making of cocktail cherries, which, when you consider how few cocktail cherries a normal person would eat in their life, I suppose is a pretty low risk. Red 3.
I grew up in food business. My grandfather was in Iran more than 40 years in the sandwich business. Cold cuts or warm sandwich is very simple. Because we grew up in Germany, we create together something like between Europe and back home, We use QuickBook for input the business, output, pay stubs. Have the access always with you. This is amazing with the app, yeah?
Wherever you are, whenever you have a minute time, it's very comfortable.
Something within you.
Oh, two of those would be lovely. Let's see if I can find which one first. Found it. Are you stitched or glued? Go. Add those to the rose pile.
Faces similar restrictions in Australia and New Zealand. Heck, even one of America's own states jumped the FDA on the ban Red 3 trend. In 2023, California passed a law that would ban Red 3 among other ingredients from being sold inside the Golden State. But regardless of how long it took the US to officially nix Red 3, it's banned now. So what happens next? And the short answer is not that much. First off, this ban doesn't actually go into effect officially until January 2027 for foods and 2028 for ingestible medications. But even when it does, and this was probably the most shocking thing I found while researching for this episode, there's surprisingly few big brands that actually still use Red 3. The biggest names I could really find were Betty Crocker's Red Icing, Strawberry Yoo-Hoo, and those chalky Valentine hearts that no one eats anyway. Meanwhile, think of things that we eat that are like comically, almost radioactively.
Oh my god. I think that might be a little bit too big for the horns.
Mountain Dew, Code Red, Cherry Airheads, Hawaiian Punch, Twizzlers, none of them.
Rethink this, guys.
Opting for
We'll keep those eyes though, so those are going on right now.
Red 40. Red 40 seems to be more preferred when companies want a more vibrant red instead of a pink. But when this Red 3 ban finally goes into effect, in all likelihood, all the brands still holding out for Red 3 will probably just switch over to Red 40. But that comes with a whole host of other issues. Because Red 40 might not be so good for our bodies either. I mean, for one, some people are just straight up allergic to Red 40, and for some, it can trigger migraines. In mice, studies have also shown that Red 40 can cause inflammatory bowel diseases, colonic inflammation, and even DNA damage. There's also been a ton of research that shows a connection between Red 40 consumption and an increase in ADHD-like symptoms in some children. That is a big yikes. And it's not just Red 40. Basically, every single one of the artificial dyes currently approved by the FDA shows some sorts of problems. So if all these artificial dyes are potentially harmful for us, the next logical question to ask is, why do we still use them? I mean, remember, these are food dyes, not flavorings. They're as tasteless as a British barbecue. There are also plenty of natural food dyes out there that could, and in some countries do the job of dyeing just fine. Then why do they stick around? Well, reason number one, cost. It is a lot cheaper to produce large quantities of artificial dyes than to try and acquire an equivalent amount of the natural. Reason number two, shelf life. Synthetic dyes tend to have super long shelf lives. In some cases, dyes can last for years beyond their listed expiration date. But like, do we want that? Who cares if my food still looks as vibrant as the day I bought it if everything else about it expired years ago? Ugh. And the biggest reason for our love of dyes is the color. For example, take a look at this picture of M&M's. Do they look off to you? If you're an American, you might be wondering what's up with the colors. Did someone leave them out in the sun for too long? Nope, these are just ordinary European M&M's. The difference? The use of more natural dyes. Here's them side by side with the American ones. The fact of the matter is that artificial dyes just provide a more consistent and vibrant color pattern. Every red M&M in the US is just as red as the last and as big and bright as those stars and stripes. We've just come to expect it. And you know what?
The Ferrero Rocher chocolate bar. Crunchy hazelnuts, smooth chocolate, creamy filling. Make any moment worth celebrating. Ferrero Rocher.
You know what? That's the real biggest thing that's keeping the US from ditching the artificial dyes. It's us. Yeah, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. It seems that many Americans do want to eliminate artificial colors from their food, but perhaps not enough. In 2015, a Nielsen report found that around 42% of consumers worldwide found it very important that products contain no artificial colors. But among North Americans, that number went down to just 29%. And even when there's been pressure on big corporations to cut out the colors, American consumers are just not as big of a fan of the results. In the past decade, Mars, the conglomerate that makes M&M's, Starburst, and Skittles, as well as cereal giants like Kellogg's and General Mills, have all made pledges to the public that they'd phase out artificial colors in their food. They've even gone so far to set hard dates for when that would be accomplished. But eventually, all those days came and went. And most of the brands either missed their goals completely, or in some cases, completely reversed course. You know why? Turns out, consumers didn't like how their food looked without all those artificial dyes. Take Trix, the cereal with the most obnoxious colors in the cereal space. In 2016, General Mills, the maker of Trix, removed all the artificial colors from its iconic cereal. And sales did initially increase, but eventually consumer complaints started to pile up and the sales dried up, leading them to switching back to the artificial stuff after just a year and a half. Similarly, the other big brands ended up noticing that American consumers, they've just grown accustomed to the colorful foods. That's not to say that there hasn't been some progress though. 90% of Kellogg's cereals and 85% of General Mills are now made with natural colors and flavors. And while Mars is still hesitant to remove them from their candies, some of their other brands have switched away from the artificial colors as well. But if we want to see those last few artificial dyes come out of our food, then we're gonna have to change the way our brains have been programmed to love the color. I'm not talking about creating a world without color like that one episode of Fairly OddParents, but we need to change our tastes, even though it's not actually changing the taste of our food. When you see a brand advertising their product that has no artificial colors, instead of letting your eyes glaze over that, like I know I have before, realize that this is an opportunity to speak with your wallet. For example, take these white cheddar Cheetos made without any of the yellow 6 or red 40 found in the normal flaming hot variety. Let them know that you will still buy this stuff as long as it tastes good. The rest of the world still chugs along without these colors, and so can we. And of course, to those groups of advocates and scientists that keep researching and sharing information about the artificial dyes, keep up the good work. And to the FDA, maybe you can help too. Force the big brands' hands a little bit. That'd be appreciated. And heck, if none of that works, maybe eating less of these processed foods that tend to have the artificial dyes in them might not be a bad idea either way. But hey, that's just a theory. A food theory. Buen provecho. And hey, while you're checking out your food packages for artificial dyes, you may have also noticed that
Little demon lamb.
click the card on the screen to watch me dive into why those dates don't mean what you think they mean. And as always, I'll see you next week.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
A diaper this sleep-free sets them free. Only Pampers Cruisers 360 have the 360 stretchy waist for up to 100% leak-proof fit on every wild child. Pampers Cruisers 360 is the #1 pull-on
What
diaper.
happened? Why do I have a line through my eyeball? Can I fix it?
Ah, Lunchables. There was a time when whipping out one of these bad boys made
I'm hungry.
you the coolest kid at the lunch table. But lately, for no reason in particular, people have started to question whether all these lunch kits are really good for kids to eat. And not just because of questionable strawberry banana.
Hungry.
More and more of these
I'm gonna
kits
see if I can
are
find
popping
something.
up for kids and claim that they're better alternatives. But while everyone has been arguing about whether X or Y meal kit is healthier, everyone has missed what's really going on here. Hello Hello, Internet. Welcome to Food Theory, the show with a surprising twist that's hard to resist. And today, we're talking about all things Lunchables. The undisputed GOAT of lunchtime needs no introduction. It's been churning out...
Oh, where'd I put it? Where'd I put that skeleton I had?
My
There
personal
you are.
favorite is the pancake Lunchables. Little discs of pancakes with syrup and bacon bits. Even though every time I bring them up, no one seems to remember them. Leave a comment down below if you do, so that I feel less alone. But fun fact, Lunchables was originally created as a way for its parent company, Oscar Mayer, to sell more bologna and other deli meats. But it also had the benefit of being a super convenient lunch for busy parents. Create a delicious product and throw in some rad commercials, and it's no wonder that Lunchables eventually grew to become the sought-after lunchtime treat it is today. But not everyone is all aboard the Lunchables train. In recent months, people have started to question whether Lunchables and all these pre-made meal kits that have popped up are all that good for kids on a daily basis. Regardless, they're still so popular that Mr. Beast, KSI, and Logan Paul have released their own meal lunch kit, Munchly, to just a wee bit of controversy. But today, we're not going to wade into that Lunchables versus Lunchly debate. A lot of people that are well qualified and dang near as handsome as I am have already done a great job comparing and contrasting the two. Instead, I want to take a big step back, because whether it's Lunchables, Lunchly, or any other pre-made meal kit, people online have brought up some legitimate concerns about the long-term health value these kinds of products have for children. But is this the internet being over-paranoid? Or is there something in these meals that should have us running for the hills? Get your sauce squeezers and cracker stackers ready, loyal theorists, as we find out whether Lunchables are more Funchables or lunch awful for your health. A good place to start looking when trying to figure out if a piece of food is good for you or not is obviously the nutrition facts label. And the first place that most of us tend to gravitate toward on that label is the calorie count. I mean, they literally put the thing in like 200-point font, so yeah, of course we're gonna look there first. And taking a look at a pack of Lunchables turkey and cheddar cracker stackers, you'll see that they contain 260 calories per package. Similarly, Lunchly's turkey stackums are just 230 calories per package, and that includes a mini bottle of Prime and a Feastables bar. Meanwhile, a third brand of these cracker kits, Armor Brand's Lunch Makers Cracker Crunchers, man, these names are too long, are just 210 calories, including the mini
long
butterfield.
arm.
And the low caloric nature isn't limited to just the crackers. The iconic pizza varieties of these products are also between 220 and 360 calories per full package. So right off the bat, it's clear that Lunchables and all these other meal kits are super low in calories. Too low, in fact. Look, it's no secret that obesity rates globally, but especially in the United States, are climbing. And calories are certainly a big contributor to that problem. But, and this may surprise you, these meals actually swing too far in the other direction, being too few in calories to really be considered a full meal. Remember, kids aren't just tiny adults. Their bodies are growing and need these calories and nutrients to not just maintain themselves, but to grow as well. According to the American Heart Association, school-aged children should be eating between 1,200 and 2,200 calories per day, depending on their age and sex. According to the National School Lunch Program, or the NSLP, to be considered a meal, a school lunch is supposed to be between 550 and 850 calories. The only Lunchables that even come close to that caloric threshold are the uploaded sub-meal, the nachos, and the new grilled cheese, which is the only one that actually meets the bare minimum threshold for a kid in K5. But the point remains the same. For a kid in, say, the 6th grade to meet the minimum caloric requirement for a lunch, they'd have to eat around 2.3 times the amount of cracker stackers, which, while that sounds delicious, also comes with 2.3 times the other macros. Speaking of which... calories aren't the only thing that determines whether a food may be healthy, though. Because while the calorie count in a Lunchable may be low, that's not true of everything in there. Starting with the good, a Lunchables turkey and cheddar cracker stacker does come with a fairly impressive 13 grams of protein in that calorically small package. For context, a child between the ages of 9 and 13 should be eating around 34 grams of protein per day, while teenagers in the awkward thrusts of puberty should be eating around 46 to 52 grams. That means that a Lunchables cracker stacker, despite its pitiful calorie count, does provide around a quarter of the protein an average growing teenager needs in a given day. And, in case you're wondering, Lunchly's equivalent comes in at a lower 11 grams of protein. But what they lack in protein, they make up for in more things. Why? What'd you think I was gonna say? But turning back to packaging and other macronutrients, let's look at the fats found in a Lunchable. Despite fat's bad reputation, our bodies do need need some fat in order to carry out our daily functions. Fat is used as an energy source, just like sugar. And we also need fats in our diets to absorb some of our fat-soluble vitamins, like vitamins K, A, D, and E. But, obviously, too much fat in your diet can increase your risk of a whole smorgasbord of problems, including obesity, coronary heart disease, and even some cancers. And taking another look at both Lunchables and Lunchly, fat is very much on the menu. The nachos, crackers, and pizza for both brands contain between 12 and 21 grams of fat, with between a third to a whole half of that being saturated fat. You may remember from our macadamia nuts episode that I briefly took residence in Matt's pantry, but you may also remember that we spoke quite a bit about all the different types of fats. TLDW, saturated fats, and trans fats are considered the bad type that you should avoid. The saturated and saturated fats comes from them containing more hydrogens than an unsaturated fat. In other words, they are saturated with them. But the reason that saturated fats are so problematic is because they increase the LDL, or bad cholesterol, in your blood, and therefore increase your risk of heart disease. And looking at the nutrition facts for so many of these meal kits, while having
You own the ultimate tool. You also own the ultimate toy. Tough this smart can only be called F-150.
7 grams of saturated fat doesn't sound like a lot. That's a full third of what the average adult should be having in a given day. Kids need it even less. Again, looking at the NSLP standards, lunches for children are not allowed to have more than 10% of the total calories come from saturated fat. So it would seem that kids like Lunchables and Lunchly are saturated with hydrogen, saturated with fat, and saturated with an increased risk of developing heart disease. And speaking of heart disease, the nutrient we find in these meal kits that's the biggest red flag when it comes to the heart health is, of course, sodium. And don't get me wrong, I love salt. We all love salt. It can both preserve our food and make it taste even better. While my potentially lukewarm take, it is the second most important culinary discovery in history, only behind fire. But all of that delicious, delicious salt comes with a catch. Eating too much sodium has been linked to increased blood pressure and an elevated risk of stroke and heart disease. And you may be thinking, heart disease, smart disease, what's the big deal about that? Well, what if I told you that according to the CDC, heart disease is the #1 leading cause of death in Americans each year? More than cancer, more than strokes, more than listening to Baby Shark for 10 hours on a row on YouTube. A full 700,000 Americans die of heart disease every year, and our appetite for salt and fat, unfortunately, plays a big role in that. So with all of that doom and gloom, how do our meal kits do? Not great. The Lunchables Turkey and Cheddar Cracker Stackers contains a gargantuan 690 milligrams of sodium. Although, strangely enough, if you buy the version with Capri Sun and a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, it's less, at 560 milligrams, for some reason. I honestly have no idea why. It seems like it's the same thing, but with a drink and dessert added. We'll go with magic for now. But either way, that's still super high, especially for children. 690 milligrams is over half of what's adequate for a child in a day. And while it seems like a no-brainer for companies like Oscar Mayer to remove as much of that excess sodium as possible, it's not that simple. Not only does that sodium make it taste better, something a food company obviously cares about, but that Salt All Their Meal Kit brand that will remain nameless had issues with moldy cheese on their pizza. At first, I thought this might be as a result of having less sodium than Lunchables and thus leading to them not lasting quite as long. But
Ivy's doing good, period. She's still pretty tired. She's still a little tired after being in the woods for hours chasing porcupines. LOL, she will live. Period. Ghetto's a little wobbly, but I'm putting the food and the water to him. Period, he's better in the morning. Night night, love you too. Night, mommy.
comparing the two big that other brand has higher levels of sodium than the normal pizza. Of course, at the time of writing this, we don't know what caused this moldy cheese epidemic, or even if it's a really widespread issue. But we can say that a lack of sodium in the cheese is definitely not the reason. So yeah, regardless of which meal kit you pick up, you're also going to be picking up a big spoonful of salt to go with it. And since that salt leads to an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, it might not be a great idea to send kids to school with one of these every day. But that doesn't matter, because what if I told you that children are able to buy Lunchables at schools now? Last year, Oscar Mayer and its parent company Kraft Heinz announced that they were rolling out a modified version of their classic Cracker Stacker and Pizza Lunchables as part of the NSLP. Now, if you watched this episode so far and are thinking there's no way that Lunchables can meet those nutritional guidelines, you'd be right. But that didn't stop Lunchables. Lunchables ended up creating slightly modified versions of their classic Cracker Stackers and pizza that allowed it to slide just under those NSLP standards. They upped the protein a bit and used whole grain in the crackers in order to be served alongside squares as part of a balanced school lunch. As a result of this modification, both the pizza and crackers count as meat or meat equivalent, a whole grain, and the sauce in the pizza seems to count as a red/orange vegetable. Go figure. And if you think that it's kind of bogus that Lunchables can count as a vegetable, we have a whole video where we deep dive into the craziness of NSLP standards. Now, you might be thinking, okay, having Lunchables sneak into school lunch menus might be lame, but at least it's healthier than the store-bought version. Well, I wouldn't be so sure. One analysis found that while the school version did have more protein, less saturated fat, and even more fiber, it also had nearly 200 more milligrams of sodium than the store-bought version, where the levels were already concerningly high. Let's move on. I don't think my heart can take much more of this. Jeez! So far, we've talked about how Lunchables and meal kits like it are too low in calories as well as too high in sodium and fat. What's next? You're gonna tell me that these kits also contain dangerously high levels of... Oh, come on! Yep, according to Consumer Reports, they found that Lunchables and other kits like it contained concerningly high levels of lead, the super dangerous neurotoxin, the same lead that is especially dangerous for children. In fact, lead in children is linked to damage to the brain and nervous system, slowed growth and development, as well as learning and behavior problems. Countless studies over the years have shown a strong correlation between lead exposure as a kid and the incidence of violent crimes as an adult. So, how did Lunchables and the other kids do in their lead test? Well, considering I'm talking about it now, I think you know, not good. Also, I'd note that Lunchly wasn't included in the study because the product didn't actually exist at the time. But the test found that Cracker Stackers had 74% of the maximum allowable dose level of lead as defined by the state of California. Now, if you know anything about California, you know that they tend to be pretty strict when it comes to regulations. So being below that standard isn't too bad. But do you know what Santi's maximum allowable dose of lead is in my food? 0! Yeah, 74% is less than 100%, but I don't want 3/4 of my daily lead coming from 250 calories worth of cheese and crackers. By the way, the pizza varieties didn't fare much better, having lead levels of 73% and 69%. Nice, but, you know, not nice. And so you might be asking yourself, how is it possible for all of this excess salt? You probably know that Lunchables don't grow on trees. Heck, they'd probably be healthier if they did. Instead, it's what we call...
While you wait, can I offer you a snack?
Introducing Ultra Reactive. Now, new styles, new colors. Right now, get 40 to 70% off deals.
Oh, baby.
New moves.
My arm is numb.
Is an ultra-processed food, or UPF. Essentially, all of our food can broadly be put into 3 categories: unprocessed, processed, and ultra-processed. For unprocessed foods, think of something like this, which is more or less the product in as natural of a state as possible with little to nothing being done to it. Processed foods involve, well, processing the food in some way. This can include grinding, peeling, squeezing, or juicing to transform that product into something else. So, if an apple is unprocessed, something like organic apple juice could be considered processed. Then finally, we have ultra-processed foods, which encompasses the vast majority of our packaged goods we find in supermarkets, UPFs have been heavily processed. Ingredients have been added, and the original ingredients are completely unrecognizable from their quote-unquote natural state. To round out our apple analogy, an apple pie would be considered an ultra-processed food. And UPFs aren't just highly processed, they can also be highly hazardous to our health. One meta-analysis of 45 different studies of UPFs totaling around 10 million participants found a link between eating UPFs and 32 different conditions, including type 2 diabetes, sleeping disorders, and anxiety. Wait a minute, you're telling me that eating pancake Lunchables as a kid is why I'm so anxious all the time? All joking aside, in general, UPFs, while delicious, come with, on average, higher levels of fat, sugar, sodium, and other chemicals. And sometimes these processes can also cause some unintended ingredients like lead and plastics to sneak in there as well. That's not to say that the ultra-processed foods always mean unhealthy, but 9 times out of 10, if it's ultra-processed like our meal kits we've been talking about today, it's gonna contain higher levels of all that stuff that slowly takes a toll on our health, especially for kids. Man, we've really let kids down, haven't we? And I'm not just talking about how Lunchables,
I'm not talking about Lunchables.
Like are ultra-processed, filled with sodium and fat, with too few calories and too much lead, because that's true of just about all the food we give kids these days. Although Lunchly might be at the tippity top of foods not to give them. But I'm not here to be an enemy of processed food. This food is delicious, but I'm also an adult. I have all the knowledge to make the best or worst choices about what to put in my body. But kids are impressionable in more ways than just repeating swear words. Not only do healthy meals give their bodies the nutrients they need to grow up big and strong, but it also teaches them healthier habits and develops a palate not geared towards just salt and fat. So can't we just bring more healthy food into our kids' cafeterias and lunchboxes? It's not always so simple. I mean, let's take a look at just in-school lunches. School cafeterias have so many competing forces that it makes it so hard to make lunchtime even possible, let alone healthy. Schools have to feed hundreds or even thousands of kids lunch and oftentimes breakfast every single day. So is at a premium. Also, here in the U.S., the amount of money the federal government gives to schools to help feed kids is comically small. After accounting for labor and equipment costs, the average school has just $1.25 per meal to feed kids. Yeah, try making a quick and healthy meal for thousands of kids on that sort of budget. It's damn near impossible. And of course, the toughest critics of all are kids. You can lay out all the food you want, but if kids don't eat it, it's wasted food and money. All of this also applies to our kids who are bringing Lunchables or things like that to school. Time, cost, and personal preference can lead to lunches that are tasty but lack what kids really need. And federal regulators too have to balance all of these competing interests and priorities while continuing to enforce healthier standards on child lunches, while also hearing the legitimate concerns from kids, schools, and food manufacturers. So is that it? Are kids just doomed to be with subpar food that sets themselves up with bad food habits? Not necessarily, because despite all the struggles, those standards do continue to improve. The USDA's National School Lunch Program, the same program that allowed Lunchables pizza to be a vegetable, continues to update its standards to try and be healthier and healthier. Recently, they updated the guidelines for how much sodium can be in school lunches by around 10%. It's not as much as the USDA originally wanted to slash it by, but progress is progress. The NSLP is also phasing in limits on added sugars, limits on sugary cereals and yogurts, as well as standards for what nutrients and meal substitutes need to have to be considered healthy. All things I'd consider a step.
This is getting a facelift.
And there's a way for you to make a difference. Because you know whose standards are as high as ever? Ours. The general public knows way more about nutrition than we ever have before. And there are a lot of things in place, like the nutrition
Green isn't working.
give us the tools to make smart decisions about not just our food, but our kids as well. We talked about this bit when we did the Healthy Burger episode, but just looking at the nutrition facts label percent of your daily value can tell you a lot about whether a particular item is nutritious or not. Less than 5% of something's daily value is considered low, and over 20% is considered high. That right there can already be a quick and easy way to know, oh, this Lunchly might be too high in sodium or fat or mold for what I or my very hypothetical child need. And if you're looking for quick and healthy alternatives to these kind of meal kits, they do exist, just at a cost. Not a sponsor, but one company called Little Spoon offers what they call Lunchers. Essentially the same idea as Lunchables delivered straight to your door, but without a lot of the baggage we talked about today, while still still low in calories, their pizza contains around a third less saturated fat and about half as much sodium. And as much as I love a Lunchables pizza, this image of Luncher's pizza looks way more appetizing. Of course, all that goodness comes at a cost to your wallet, a big one. Little Spoon Luncher starts at around $7.29 per meal. Compare that to Lunchables at a much more reasonable $1.87. But you don't need to give an arm and a leg to try and create healthy meals. If time is no issue, then creating your own meal kits at home, perfectly dialed to what you or your kid need, can be not only a fun way to keep up that nutritional game, but it can also teach fun meal prepping and health habits to your children that will stick with them longer than a Cracker Stacker. And speaking of which, what's the eaten again by mortals? Some of them. Would I recommend people, or especially children, eat Lunchables or Lunchly every day? God, no. But that's okay. Sometimes time or taste supersedes making the most optimal choice. Instead, it's about being as informed as possible so that you can make small changes that ultimately make you lunch able to improve yours or your kid's health. But hey, that's just a theory. A food theory. Bon appetit. And did you know that chicken noodle is not the thing you need when you're sick from school? Slurp that video on screen to watch me dissect why Mom's miracle cure was one big lie. And as always, I'll see you next week.
I don't want to listen. Oh, chicken noodle soup. Chicken soup would be good. Fuck, I'm hungry. I don't want bread and I don't want crackers.
Discover new Lindor Vegan, oat-based chocolate that's made to melt you.
This one's for you, Grandpa. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Food Theory, the show that fills your stomach and your heart. After so many years online, it really feels like there's not a lot left that you have to learn about me. And yet, did you know that I actually come from a Polish family? Yes, not things that you'd expect from a Matthew Patrick, but it's true. Polish, Czech, Slovak. It's not really something that I think about myself all that often, and yet I grew up with polka parties playing in my grandparents' house, munching down on pierogi and kolaczki, foods that are spelled with many consonants next to each other. You know that you're dealing with a serious dish. You see the letters C, Z, and K all mixed together. That right there, that's a Polish dish. But as a picky eater growing up, I was scared of a lot of those traditional family foods. Hot stewing all day filled with rib with cabbages, kielbasas, sauerkraut, sour soups with pungent smells that seeped into every fabric of the house. They were always there, hanging out on the stovetop, but I never really would eat them. Heck, I would barely even try them. They were just weird. No, my meals typically tend to stay squarely in the standard American diet. Burgers, some fries. But a little while back, I came across a number of recipes that were given to me by my late grandfather. Well, technically, he left them to Stephanie because he knew just how bad I was in the kitchen. They'd been sitting in the closet, hanging out in an accordion folder, so we decided to take them out and put them into a cookbook so they'd be easier to save, but never really had an intention to do anything with them. I mean, who really wants to take a day and make a bunch of cabbage soup, right? Well, you know what? Today, I do. This episode's something that's been on my mind a lot lately. Thinking about memories, family, legacy, and it's because we've been going through and crossing off all these episodes on my to-do list, and it's just gotten me to think further and further back. And when I stop and actually assess it, I'm not really connected to that family history. I mean, I pull up the cookbook. I can't even pronounce half the dishes that are inside of this thing. I can't even pronounce this. This is kreplach.
Kreplach soup.
Luckily, we have the power of editing on our side.
Voiceover. Just mouth, and then you can put it in Africa.
Yeah, here we go. This is one of my grandpa's favorite ponchki recipes right here. Wow, isn't that amazing? Don't you love ponchki?
Oh my gosh.
Ponchki?
It's my favorite.
Right? It's almost my favorite food. I can say it all day. Ponchki, 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 ponchki. There it is. I know. It's like I'm fluent or something. In all seriousness, one of the things that struck me recently was that as an only child, without me cooking these recipes, without me passing them on, they disappear. That part of my heritage just goes away. And so weird or not, I kind of owe it to myself, to my grandfather, to everyone before him to keep those recipes alive. Cabbage or no cabbage. But I gotta admit, one of the reasons why I haven't dove into this is because when I was a kid, I was scared of a lot of things. Because I didn't actually eat a lot of my grandparents' cooking back in the day, because it always smelled weird. But I think since being a kid, my flavor palette has really grown. My appreciation of different ethnicities of food has really expanded a lot. So I think I've evolved enough as a human being to test out some of my grandpa's favorite recipes. And I'm not the
the only one. I've invited some other members of Team Theorist, including editor Gerardo, graphic artist Nicole, and of course, Steph, to join me in cooking some of their own family recipes. That way we can all
I
take
don't think
some
we
time
have
to
any
connect with
family
our past and
recipes.
see whether keeping these family recipes
Mom hasn't
alive
cooked
is a
since
tradition
Dad
that's
passed,
outdated, or whether
so-
there's some kind of magic hidden inside those long-forgotten cookbooks. So where does the tradition of family recipes really come from? You would think that we've been passing down recipes for as long as we've been around on the planet. You gotta remember, our early days were more hunt, kill, eat, and less, I wonder if that mammoth is gonna partner well with some pomegranates. We only actually started cooking with fire around 780,000 years ago. If that sounds old, well, remember, mankind is like 2 million years old. And if you thought recipes would follow soon after, well, you'd be wrong. We can assume that they were passed down through word of mouth, but as far as written recipes go, you're gonna have to fast forward just a bit, a couple 100,000 years or so, to when the concept of reading and writing was invented. The oldest written recipes known to us date back to 1730 BC, and include ingredients for about 25 stews and broths, as well as some basic cooking instructions. There's even suggestions in there for presentation. Just imagine a 4,000-year-old Gordon Ramsay chiseling out how to prepare a lamb stew into a slab of rock. But even then, recipes were a far cry from what we're used to today. They were written more narratively because they were typically dictated to the person who was actively doing the chiseling. But there was still something else standing in the way of family recipes being passed down after this. Literacy wasn't exactly the best. Rare were those that knew how to write, and even rarer were those who could read. Not only that, mass printing was not a thing, so it was fairly costly to make cookbooks. That's why the earliest cookbooks were actually for royals. The first modern cookbook was published in 1390 for King Richard II, so that his servants, more than likely, would cook the recipes for him. You'll get to see old Rich there throwing on an apron and getting down in the kitchen. But finally, a couple centuries later, with the advent of mass printing, literacy rates started to rise, and the luxury of cookbooks started to wane as more and more common folk were trying to get their hands on them. Cookbooks then continued to evolve until we finally started getting the modern cookbook in the 19th century. But the best thing about people learning to read and write was that they could start recording their own personal recipes and techniques, allowing them to develop their family recipes in order to pass down from generation to generation. That's what makes these things so special, is the fact that they become inextricably linked to the family itself, their heritage, their culture. But as time has gone on, things like family dinner, with multiple dishes and hours of preparation, it's becoming harder to have. For most of us, we get back home from work and we have to scramble to make something quickly for our families, or we get in the car and just drive to the Olive Garden to feast on a basket of breadsticks. Over time, at least for me, the history of these recipes has become forgotten, neglected, relegated to a dusty shelf in the kitchen. I have never made any of these before.
Now you can atone. You can atone
Yeah.
for your past and be ready to embrace your family heritage.
Yeah, that's, I mean, sad that it's coming so late in the game, but I'm excited to finally tackle these favorite soups. So here we go. This is the kielbasa and cabbage soup, which is basically a whole lot of kielbasa, a whole lot of cabbage,
And some soup.
and the soup. Like, it is basically what you see on the tin. There's not a whole lot
I'm
of
hungry.
explanation
Fuck.
in there. And then throw them in the pot to steep, saute, simmer, soup, to soup. Whatever cooking process happens to turn ingredients into soup.
I'm gonna find food.
So since this
You keep an eye on Bunny.
I feel compelled to clarify that what we're making is simmer, which involves cooking the ingredients in a liquid just below boiling.
What's
This is
this
the primary method of cooking
1,
soup.
2,
But as
3,
we
4,
began to
5,
prepare
6,
the
7, 8,
ingredients
9,
to
10,
start our
11.
souping, there was one thing that kept nagging at my mind. Here's my question, Steph.
Yes.
Do you enjoy the smell of your own farts?
What?
Just in case you're wondering where that came from, clearly it was the cabbage. Cabbage makes you stinky. And when you're prepping a whole head of cabbage as part of your family soup recipe, you back down the hatches for some serious smell. There is a silent but deadly gene. I got that. It's pretty odoriferous.
This is coming because you're like one of your last ever food theories because you're like basically nothing matters anymore. There are no stakes in this show at all.
There is a lot of pasta. No steaks. If I'm going out,
Wow.
I'm going out with a bang and a tube.
Plumbing your family's past, you're just gonna make sure that everything is accurate.
I'm not plumbing the past, I'm cleaning the pipes. So I think the kielbasa's brown. You're welcome, friends, for the deep MatPat lore that obviously you've been craving all these years. Personally, I think my farts smell pretty nice. They're kind of silent but deadly,
I
though.
can tell you that's not true.
Yeah, from an outsider's perspective. I said, do you like the smell of your own farts?
The
I think your
answer
farts are also
The
pretty
answer is no. The answer is no on both counts. And dude, you're my best friend.
We are best friends.
But you can clear a room.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. I think I inherited that from my mom.
Yeah.
Who I think inherited it from my grandpa,
who ate a lot of cabbage. So with our stove and our bowels working hard, it's time to go check in with our other team members, huh? We got Editor Gerardo, who's making the traditional Colombian dish ayaco, another family soup, but this one, 100% less cabbage. Instead, you're looking at chicken, 3 different kinds of potatoes, and a unique herb known as huasca. And the ingredients, not easy to find stateside, something that Gerardo took personal offense to.
It's not the same, man. You just have to feel it.
Going a little further down geographically, we have Nicole making charquican from Chile. And that's Chile, the country, not Chile, the dish. In fact, this dish contains no chili. In fact, jerky is derived from the word chaparqui and quechua, the indigenous language family from the Andean region of South America. But perhaps the craziest thing about Nicole's dish, she's going purely off memory from a very long time ago.
I haven't tried this recipe in over 16 years, since I was like 19 or something. I don't even remember how it tastes. I just remember slight memories of this dish. But yeah, I am pretty excited.
If I tried going off book for the recipe that we're preparing, this episode would have just been me running around 16 minutes with smoke detectors going off. Good on you, Nicole. But back to our kitchen, where it's time for us to get started on the final dish of the day, Stephanie's bacala fritters. So now that my family recipe is on the stove, it's time to switch over to Steph and take the dish out of the bathtub.
Yeah, exactly. My family recipe is one I'm very excited about, and it actually takes a combination of 2 of my other favorite family recipes and brings them together. The 2 family recipes that I really wanted to kind of try to incorporate into this episode were, one, my family's fried dough recipe, which is basically just fried pizza dough. You can do it savory, you can do it sweet, you can sprinkle it with powdered sugar. It's like the best thing I've ever eaten in my life. But it's too easy. It's like kind of too simple. On the other end of things, I wanted to incorporate my dad and my grandma's bacala recipe. So bacala, if you're not familiar with it, is dried salted cod. You buy it outside of the refrigerator section. It's literally like a salted preserved fish, and it comes in this big slab.
Do you buy it? Where are you finding this?
Yeah, you can buy it at some specialty grocery stores. We get it at the Asian grocery store because they also use dried salted fish. It's the same kind of thing. It's also in South America. It's in Mexico. I mean, everybody has.
We have salt cod up here in Canada.
And so it's actually not that uncommon, but it's pretty uncommon.
Actually, I'm going to put the bones in the other container where I found the other bones.
Is first you have to get all the salt out before you can actually use it, and you could do that by just putting it in a big pot and leaving it soak for a while. But if you're doing it the real traditional way, you cook it in the bathtub for 48 hours. And so that's what we did. We took it downstairs to the office, we chucked her in the bathtub, and you change the water every few hours and stuff like that, and it comes out.
Water every few hours.
Well, you wouldn't sit in the bathtub for more than a few hours with the same water. That would just be unhygienic.
In any case, this high-maintenance slab of salted fish is the key ingredient. And for those of you who wonder why we buy a salted fish just to remove all the salt in a bathtub, it's because the salt is actually used as a preservative, not for flavoring. So the idea is to rehydrate it to remove the salt so you can re-season it into whatever you're cooking. It's a very demanding fish, but Steph assured me I had to wait and judge for myself.
It's deep fried. It's amazing. It comes out this awesome golden brown. I think I'm gonna have the winning recipe of the day and also honor my ancestors appropriately.
Sorry, can I just call out the fact that at no point throughout this episode has this ever been a competition, and then Stephanie starts talking, and all of a sudden, there's clear winners and losers with our ancestors, Stephanie. Our ancestral recipes. You're like, I'm gonna win. It's not a competition.
Is it not?
Is your garden trying to tell you something? Sunlight and water can't satisfy your garden's hunger, so feed them Miracle Grow and see the difference. Satisfy your garden's hunger with Miracle Grow.
Stephanie's Italian side is showing hard in this episode. But in all honesty, once we started cooking and trying the components, her recipe was delicious. Before we go for it, I'm gonna take a little bite of this guy.
Yeah, try it. Yeah, it's really good. Oh, that's really good.
Ooh, it is crispy on the outside and gooey on the inside.
That's really good.
Oh, that's pleasant. That's a really nice texture. Okay, gotta admit, I was getting pretty hyped for this one. But then I remembered that smack dab in the middle of that delicious dough, we were gonna be putting a bunch of salted fish. Yum. I decided to mix it up just a wee bit from that and make some with Nutella and marshmallow. Not to knock the family recipe or anything, but if I'm frying dough, I'm making it into the most delicious donut fair food thing that I can create. But just by looking at these things, you could tell that they were gonna be delicious. Stephanie, How's it feel?
It feels great. I'm so excited to have accomplished this. It feels exactly the way the recipe said it would be. Like, I feel like I really stuck to it and did it exactly the way you're supposed to. I'm just excited to taste them. I'm so proud of myself.
They look so
Where is that thing? It's upstairs, isn't it?
And you're
Of
supposed
course it
to
is.
eat them right after you cook them, and we've just gotten them out of the oil. So I mean, I think this is exactly the way they're supposed to be served.
And I think one cool thing that's worth calling out here is even though we're like pressed for time and in terms of the shoot and things like that, we took extra time to experiment more with it. We were having so much fun with it, which I think is really noteworthy.
Where is?
In our hectic lives, we're like, oh man, we have so many things to do. We're like, hey, this is kind of cool. What if we throw in this, or what if we throw in that? We got a cheese one in here, we got a Nutella one in here, we got a marshmallow one,
a plain one. I'm really excited.
So you also don't know what you get. You might get salty fish, you might get salty anchovy, you might get a little dessert, like in every flavored jelly bean challenge with salty fish joy. But for as unappealing as all this sounded on paper, when everything was out of the frying pan and into my mouth, my reaction says it all. These little dough balls were outrageously good. The chewiness was out of this world. And the salty fish, great. Stephanie's a big texture gal.
Oh yeah, my favorite flavor is chewy.
Stephanie's huge in texture. This is, I absolutely see why this is like your favorite thing ever.
Absolutely.
How have we not made this?
You know, it's one of those things.
There we go.
It's not
All right.
easy. You
I
have to have,
think
like,
she's set. Her eyes are in. Her horns are on. They're not completely set, but they're 90% of the way there. One little jackalope.
Because Jesus, I was to replace so many of the ingredients to suit the flavor as much as possible to make it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're getting there. Make it after all.
Which just left us back where we began, the Fart Factory, aka my family's cabbage soup. I gotta admit, going into our final taste test, feeling like this one was gonna be a bit of a losing battle. I do have to admit though, you know, we're coming off of like those delicious fritters. It's literally like a carnival food. You know, it's awesome. So, you know, meat and cabbage soup is it's operating at a different level. Let's just say that.
I would say we should adjust our expectations maybe a little bit just based on the visual, but we'll see.
The visual of, you know, tomato soup with a lot of cabbage. Admittedly, not the most eye-catching, and really not the most nose-catching either. Like, this stuff has a pretty pungent smell, but it was the smell of my grandparents' house from when I was a kid. For as odd of a smell as it is, I couldn't help but smile. You know how you walk into your grandparents' house and there's just like a smell to it? And it's uniquely a smell for that house, and you never really smell it in any other place. This is my grandparents' house's smell. That just like oozed from every pore of that door. And while I was certainly familiar with the smell, I didn't know anything about the taste. So after nearly 3 decades of avoiding trying this thing, it was finally time to sample my grandfather's soup.
The flavor is very nice.
The flavor's great.
Yeah.
The flavor's so much better than the smell.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you just kind of have to ignore the smell and go in for the flavor. It's nice and acidic and bright actually. It's got lots of the tomato. The cabbage gives it a little bit of earthiness. The kielbasa is like just the right amount of umami and salt. This is a very well balanced soup.
Right?
I like it.
The flavor is so well balanced. And it hits on, there's a little bit of sour, there's a little bit of sweet, there's a little bit of salty. This is so good. It's funny, going in, we expected this episode to be just us cooking a bunch of dishes of food. But what happened when we all bit into what was passed down to us was nothing less than a ratatouille scene where Anton Ego flashes back to his childhood.
So this gives me memories of the two, people who I most closely associate with cooking, special family foods in my household, which are my grandma and my dad. My grandma's side, her fried dough was like, it's like the best thing I've ever eaten in my life, maybe up until today. Having a memory of that, because she's no longer with us, is really special, and this tastes so similar to the type of fried dough that she would make. It makes me so happy. And then on the other side, my dad's like zany bacala recipes that he does, and we have bacala every Christmas Eve, so I have a lot of holiday memories. I have memories of my dad. There's just very nice family memories of like wonderful times of year when we're together. This is kind of a perfect recipe, I think, and I could not be happier with the way it turned out.
I imagine like summer days. I imagine my grandma on the kitchen, and oh my god, it was such a good winter. I was a kid and I'm like, oh, but is there no salad because summers in Chile are very, very hot. There was turkey ham, and I'm like, oh man, but this dish is so hot, Grandma. But you know what? You never know what you have until you lost it. So now wow, this is crazy.
My grandmother, she passed away like a few years ago. She was the one that basically teach my mom the recipe for this kind of soup. It has been passed on through all the family because of her. My brother actually through was COVID and even like through the years while I was not here at home, he was actually with my mom the most, and he actually learned a lot of the recipes from my grandmother that she teach to my mom. He actually knows how to do it. He actually goes really well. Like for this little project that we were talking about, I actually asked him directly the recipe because my mom told me that he made it much better than herself, which that's actually kind of amazing, knowing that now this latest generation is actually improving the recipe that we have always had before.
And I think that's what's so satisfying about this whole experience. Nowadays, it's easy to just dismiss old things, right? We literally have the world's collective knowledge at our fingertips instantaneously through the internet. But today showed me how valuable the knowledge of the past is. That red book of recipes, some handwritten, some from other cookbooks, some from the local newspaper. That curated list of foods, that was my grandfather's legacy. His child. And instead of just shoving it aside because things take too long to cook or smell strange or whatever, today I decided to embrace it. We learned from it, and the collective memories of our loved ones. And it showed us how valuable taking that time can actually be. In the process, we infused a bit of ourselves into it, to come out on the other end with something that would make the ones that aren't here anymore proud. So in the end, despite needing to spend 2 days with a fish in the bathtub, and me needing to take a healthy dose of Beano, the experience of reconnecting with our families was totally worth it. In fact, for Nicole and I, it was a little bittersweet because both of us realized that moments had passed us by.
If I can only go back in time and punch my kid's self a butcher and sit on her place and eat that chunky can, I would do it too.
Whenever I would go visit my grandparents, they would always ask, like, hey, we got some soup on, do you want to try some? Do you want to have some? Do you want to have some? I'm like, no, I'm good. And I missed out. And I kind of look back and I'm sad about that. But I'm glad that I didn't let it pass me by this whole time. And that it didn't just get lost in a cabinet or closet somewhere. But after today, I know that this makes me want to work my way through this cookbook with Steph and Ali. And who knows, maybe we'll put our own spin on it, modify it, add recipes to it. And then Ali will be able to take that gift with him. That's really the beauty of these family recipes. They're threads that trace bits of our identities back to our ancestors, but also flow through to the next generation. These aren't just ingredients put on a page, they're a family legacy carried across time. And hey, if you want to be a part of that legacy and sample for yourself, I've actually included all the recipes down in the description below. And please, while you're down there, if you have a family recipe, put it down in the comments. Let this video serve as a type of collective theorist cookbook so that the memories can truly live on forever. Because that's the true secret ingredients. And as always, my friends, remember, it's just a theory. A food theory. Bon appetit. Before you go, I want to give a big thank you to Liquid IV for sponsoring today's episode. I know we talked a lot about slowing down and not letting the fast pace of modern life get away, but you know what? Sometimes it does. Going back and forth constantly from home to office to meeting, cookware store because you accidentally burned the pot making a family recipe, naturally you're going to get dehydrated.
What I miss?
Liquid IV's energy multiplier comes in. Liquid IV does an amazing job of acting as a midday energy boost right when you feel that 3 p.m. slump coming on. It makes you feel like a new person. And if you're like, well, that's great, man, but my midday slump is bad, like having soup smell bad, well, it's also got 100 milligrams of natural caffeine per stick to give you that extra push you need. All of that will actually hydrate you. You're focused, you're alert, you're ready to cook every darn recipe in your grandfather's cookbook. Speaking of things with unique flavors, the yuzu pineapple has got to be my personal favorite of the batch. But you don't have to take my word for it, you just go out and try it for yourself. Whether it's the yuzu pineapple or something else like the mango tamarind, you cannot go wrong with Liquid IV. Thank you again to Liquid IV for sponsoring today's episode, and as always, my friends, I will see you next week.
I might question my life choices a bit, Mike, but never mind, you're right. Secret.
Tonight, Phil's 4-year-old asked, why is water wet? It took Phil buckets of water, puppets, and 3 hours to answer. Let the frosted greatness pat you on the back. Snacking that hits the spot.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Food Theory, and welcome to the North Carolina State Fair. Now, the State Fair is a tradition all across America, and what is even more iconic than the State Fair is actually the food that you find at the State Fair. Now, there's multiple members of Team Theorist that have never been to a State Fair before, especially this guy right here, Food Theory Creative Director Santi.
Hello!
Santi, Why have you never been to a state fair? What are you doing with your life?
Well, so I grew up overseas, and I didn't grow up somewhere that had states. I grew up on a small island, so...
It is hard to have a state fair when you don't have states. That is very true. So today we're subjecting Santi to his first ever state fair, and what better introduction to all wonderful things fair than subjecting him to some of the strangest, scariest foods that the fair has to offer. I'm holding in my hand deep-fried peanut butter pickles topped with powdered sugar and chocolate sauce. And that is just one of 20 different foods that we're going to get through by the end of the day today. Our goal, our mission, is to scientifically calculate the single best, scary, weird, fair food that you can get in your local area. How you feel about that, Santi?
Honestly, I'm terrified, especially now seeing all the different foods that we have around us that we're going to be trying. I don't know how any of these flavors will work.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in trying them and then seeing why these things might actually work.
So that, my friends, is our goal today. What is the scientifically best fair food for your dollar when you come to the state fair? So wish us luck. I think we have 5 other foods waiting for us at the picnic table over there that the rest of Team Fierce has gathered for round number 1. It's going to be a weird, interesting breakfast, let me tell you.
For this gut-punching experience, we tested 15 different iconic dishes, starting with round 1 here in a minute. But obviously, we didn't just dive into this one willy-nilly, eating things like Kirby on vacation. No, we had ourselves a rubric by which we were going to measure every food to determine the scientifically best one. First and foremost, flavor. This one's pretty obvious, but it's not just about whether it tastes good. There are some foods that are so extreme and so out there that you can only get them at the fair. Extra mega bonus points for any times that you were able to merge flavors together that didn't seem like they should go together at all. Second criteria, portability. Am I going to be able to eat this one walking around at the fair? And finally, the third part of the formula, barfability. How badly is this going to make us want to throw up when we hit the spinny, whirly, twirly rides? It is a fair after all. And if you're not going on the pop-up roller coasters with questionable safety regulations, did you really go to the fair in the first place? So, without any further ado, let's just dive into round 1. Or, in other words, our breakfast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, breakfast is served. We've got whatever this thing is supposed to be.
This is rattlesnake topped with a venom sauce. Whatever that green thing is apparently the venom of the rattlesnake we're going to be eating.
Is that really the venom, or is that just a branding?
I hope to everything that it's not.
The beauty of this episode is I've walked through state fairs for my entire life, and I've always been too scared to try a lot of these extreme foods. Because 1, they sound disgusting, but 2, they're also like expensive. So like, why would I pay for that when I can go, you know, buy like a chicken pita or a steak on a stick instead? So today, we're gonna try out all the things that I've always been too scared to try and see just how good they are. This is chicken?
It looks like it,
It
but
does.
it's actually cookie dough. It's
Oh my! Oh, they literally gave us like half the roll of cookie dough. Amazing.
That's dense too.
It is a hefty boy. And then finally, what's this? This looks like a corn dog, but clearly not.
Deep fried Snickers.
Oh, deep fried! Oh, that's I like that of everything in front of us. The deep fried Snickers is the thing that's like the least extreme. I like that this is also arranged like, oh, here's our appetizer of deep fried pickle, followed by the main course of sushi and rattlesnake, and then there's your dessert. So, without any further ado, Santi, before this gets cold, really, I want to make sure that we dive into this quickly. Taste, how does it feel in your stomach, and it's going to make you sickly.
There we go.
Yeah.
I get 2 more grabs, get ordered, and it's done. And this is with the rainbow bones. It's exciting.
Even when she did it to us, you could tell she was skeptical.
She also made sure not to take accountability for it. She's like, no, the owner made this. I just work here.
I asked her where this came from, because it feels like some sort of like pregnancy fever dream. So for taste, what are you getting it? Out of 10?
What do you think?
Because it is the
I think it
first
came out
thing-
alright.
Yeah. It is a solid 3 for me.
Purple bones.
Sorry. It's just not working. When it comes to portability, like can I walk around the fair with this?
This is a 1 right now.
Get out! My hand! I gotta say, this is a 7.
What? I'm not gonna walk around the
Do
park.
you not know how to lick your face? How did you manhandle your pickle? And then lastly, how sick is this gonna make us when we're on a ride? How heavy is it in your stomach?
This is gonna be an 8 for me in heaviness. It has to be for now.
I was gonna say, this is
Damn
probably
it.
a 6.
I botted it.
If I had more than
Botted.
just, like, a
I
foot
didn't
and a
see it
half,
till
it
now.
would be probably closer to a 7 or 8. Maybe not the most auspicious start in terms of appetizer, but now, I love sushi. You love sushi?
I love sushi.
Let's take this a little longer.
This is from Raleigh Restaurant Bulgogi. They have restaurants and food trucks outside of the fair, and they've already asked us to coat this in barbecue sauce, and then your assignment is to dip it in the aioli for everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, just to pull back the curtain of this shoot, it is 9 a.m. He seems confused.
I am, but I like it.
Right? It's really good. Okay, as long as you like it. I think this is great. If I didn't know that I had 18 more foods to try of varying degrees of disgusting, I would eat this whole thing with me.
Okay.
This is fantastic. It's on a stick, and not just a stick, a thematic chopstick. We went from a real low to a real high in terms of taste.
Wait a sec, I can't put anything at a 10 yet, but it is going to be a 9 for me.
Right, I was gonna say, like, this is a 9. Portability.
It's on chopsticks, it's great, and it doesn't fall apart. That's the other thing, it's staying together. If you bite into it, 10.
I'd say like
Idaho,
one,
2, 3,
you know,
4 jackalopes.
So let's say 9.
And an updated monkey.
I would put this out of.
It's not my best.
Like a 3.
But it is a start.
So on the
So
sickness
I will
scale,
take it.
is low good or is high good? Because
Low is good, high is bad.
You do realize that by doing that, it's making it incredibly complicated. If 10 is good in 2 categories,
Fair
and then
enough.
10 is
Fair
not
enough,
is low.
fine. So this would be a 7.
7.
Yes.
I agree. I agree.
We'll do that.
I would say 7.
The ones I have are pink, so let's see if we can find something
This is so
from
good.
that.
Oh man, I'm already so hyped about this. We are already starting at such a high. This is fantastic. Now, let's move on to, I think,
Nope, I did not
maybe the
get these
dark
eyes
horse
down.
of round 1 here, which is the rattlesnake corn dog. Spoiler alert, it was not the dark horse. It was fine, but it didn't really have the bite that I expected out of rattlesnake. In terms of taste, I'd say maybe a 3.
I was going to say a 2.
In terms of portability, easy win. I think that's, you know, corn dog, it's on a stick. That's like probably solid 9, just like this is.
Yeah, I would do that.
And then, in terms of making me sick, does it pass the roller coaster test?
I think it does solely on the principle of it being so mild.
Yeah, probably about like 5.
I would give it a 6.
So with our appetizer and main course out of the way for breakfast, and reminder, this is just breakfast. There are still 15 more foods coming down the pipe, and probably coming back up the pipe eventually. We've got ourselves dessert round 1. This is what I initially thought was chicken, but is in reality cookie dough covered in white chocolate with maple bacon. And oh boy, they did not skip on proportions, let me tell you. The cloudy white goo is slowly flowing in the breeze really gives me a lot of confidence on this one. Oh no! Oh, you had me until you lost me. Let me take a mellow flavor drink here. I'm eating cookie dough. It's publicly accessible. This is great. It's like a snickerdoodle cookie dough. Delicious. Wonderful. And then eventually, my teeth found the bacon. And all of a sudden, my delightful little romp through cookie dough land became an awkward, chewy, gummy, meaty moment, and all the joy and love that I had in my heart for this dish went out the window.
As soon as you bite into it, it's the same thing. I love cookie dough. I was like, oh, okay. But then there were like white chocolate chips in there.
Yeah.
That mixed with the bacon in my mouth was just weird. And there's like a weird bitterness that the bacon gives it. No, none of this.
It is sticky, it is gooey, it is salty and meaty. It is none of the adjectives that you really want while walking around the fair. From a textural standpoint, not great. From a flavor standpoint, not great. If you have like a cookie dough on a stick option near you, just go with something that's so complicated. This is one of those ones that I think falls into the trap of overcomplicating it for the sake of being like interesting or different.
Absolutely.
In terms of taste,
I'm gonna give it a 3.
I think I liked it a little bit more. I'd bump it up to a 5, but the bacon just brought it down. Portability.
So yes, it's on a stick, but I'm gonna give it a 2 because of how much the bacon falls down. Look at that white chocolate sauce going all over your hands and the wind everywhere. You're gonna have to slap people behind you with it. This is definitely gonna be a 2.
Yeah, this is a 2, because also the cookie dough isn't frozen enough or solid enough to hold its shape. And so it's like sliding all around the stick as I kind of go and walk around. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with you 2. And then lastly, how sick is this gonna make you?
Oh God, you're not playing tonight, are you?
I'm gonna say that's a 4 as well, just because it's lighter, but at the same time the flavor is not gonna sit well once
Want
it's
a
up
good
there.
steak?
Oh boy, we went downhill real fast there. To be honest, it didn't do much better with the deep fried Snickers bar that we tried last, even though that was an experience for Santi.
I don't know what to expect and I'm scared.
This is it. This is the dream. So shall I? That dream in your mouth and take a big old bite. Oh.
I don't want it. I don't like it. Snickers by themselves are already fairly chewy and sticky. But then with the corn dog or with the dough around it, the dough just falls away. Really all I'm eating is Snickers with extra calories.
Welcome to the fair.
I'm gonna give it a 5 because like, you know, it's not bad, but it's also not mind blowing. It's just Snickers.
In terms of taste, 5 right down the middle. There's nothing special about it, but there's also nothing like inherently bad about it. So I'd give that 9 in terms of portability. And then last but certainly not least, is that going to make you sick on a ride?
I would give this a 5 also.
Okay. I was going to say this is probably a 7 for me, just because it's a Snickers bar. It's not particularly big or heavy. This one right here was the perfect example of how you can definitely have too much of a good thing. Snickers, great. Deep fried stuff, also great. But put those two together just ruin the texture and flavor for us. What you're
Oh,
left
thank you
with
for the
is just
thumbs
a
up,
Snickers
guys.
bar with a whole lot of
That was
extra
kind of boring here
calories, and
tonight,
that was
but
not what we were looking for at the beginning of
you
the
are
day.
always
We were gonna consume
appreciated.
15 of the most
Even if you
caloric
just pop
items
in
that
to
we
give me a
never set
thumbs
our
up and then
eyes
leave.
to. So if round 1 done, it was time to hit the first batch of rides to test that all-important barfability factor. But first, Santi and I had to go down the slide like the man-children that we are.
Oh my god, oh my god, I'm gonna get caught.
Oh, and spoiler, it is all downhill for Santi after this ride. But you'll just have to keep watching for that one.
You're right down. Our stomachs are starting to feel a little iffy. This one should push it over the edge. Let's see. No cell phones allowed, but what is allowed is third-party camera crews that stand outside. So get a good close-up of the face.
I have a very strong stomach, though.
I think after the second round of food is when we'll find some trouble.
We're a fourth of the way through. This was Santi's idea, by the way. He's like, oh, you have a state fair. I want to go to the state fair. Can we do that? I'm like, yeah.
Here's the thing. I know that I feel worse than I did after the energy drink GT live that we did. That was one of the worst moments of my life.
Wow. You say that.
Oh, yeah.
You say that.
It's too early in the day.
It is hour 1.5 at this point. The food's 5. At this point, I was feeling pretty darn good, but Santi was feeling a bit off balance. Oh, you sweet summer child. So with the first round of rides done, it was time to sit back down and have ourselves our much-needed snack.
So here we are, fresh off the rides, and how you feeling, Santi?
I'm feeling it just a little bit. Like, now that we've had a little bit of time, oh boy.
Yeah, it's interesting. While I was on the ride, I wasn't feeling it, but now that I've had some time to settle off of the rides, I feel a bit uneasy down there. Especially with the little peanut butter. And I don't know how I can tell that that's the one that I feel, but something in my body is like, oh, that's the one that's doing it right now. That was only the first 5. We got another 6 foods all lined up. So wait for the tractor to go past. Good luck, sir. We got another 6 again, broken down for our lunch here. We've got appetizer of hot Cheetos corn. We have a lot of donuts.
This is the donut round.
I'm noticing a lot of donuts here. We've got a donut burger. We've got just teeny donuts. What makes you guys got?
These are
I think I'm almost done for the night.
so slattered.
Wasn't my best run, but I got
Great.
a few little
We've got
things.
a deep fried pie. What is this? A deep fried pumpkin pie? Deep fried pumpkin pie on mode. Actually, we're gonna start with this one just because everything's melting right now. Spoiler alert!
You're clean.
About the deep fried pumpkin pie here. It tastes like a pie from McDonald's.
Yeah.
It's good.
I'm gonna
I
give
like
this a
this
7,
one.
and I'm not a sweet one. It's just
Oh
very.
yeah, you're fresh.
I'd say also solid. When it comes to portability, I think
did
the
last
results
week.
speak for themselves. That's gonna be like a 1. Yeah.
And then
It's practically a 0. And then lastly, is that gonna make
little
you sick
jackalope.
on our next round of rides coming up here?
I don't think so. So this will be a 9.
I would agree. I think that this is totally safe. I feel good about this. Solid. Next up on round 2's reverse order, we got Texas Pete Donuts. So, spicy donuts.
I'm gonna grab these. This one, the eyes have to come off.
My palate is like the roller coaster we just rode. Sickening. Really?
Do you like this?
I don't hate it. Do I like it? Like is very strong. It's interesting. I'm not immediately disgusted by it. It goes from to oh to oh to ooh.
I'm gonna say it goes like, huh, to, to, Have you ever accidentally gotten any sort of like cleaning product in your mouth? This tastes like that tastes.
I kind of like it. This is so far probably the biggest surprise. What say you, Santi, on the C scale?
I'm gonna give this one 4.
Meanwhile, I'm gonna give it a 4.
If I can find a big purple one. I don't know if I have any though.
And lastly, is this gonna make you throw up on a ride?
Absolutely. This is a 2 on that scale.
So that one I'm gonna go with maybe a 4.
It shouldn't come as much of a surprise to anyone that the so-called donut round was kind of hit or miss. I was not agreeing on this.
I have enough eyeballs.
Was also a surprising disappointment. Mac and cheese bacon sundae, meanwhile, yeah, you heard that one correct. Mac and cheese bacon sundae.
Oh, buddy! Oh, buddy!
Not on that one. But we were gonna let this round go without a
More up your seat. Santi tends to like healthy. So this is a about launching humanity to the moon and things like that. No, this right here. Solid win. Taste perspective, I kind of got to give that
Yeah.
a 10. Portability,
Very nice.
Put it in your pocket, wherever you want.
you can put it in your pocket.
Get out of here with these in my pocket.
Across the board.
This is the yardstick by which everything else is.
I know that there's still more episodes to go here, more analysis to be done. But man, I think I'm really dedicated to figuring out what is the scientifically perfect fair food. This is it. This is it. That is round 2, ladies and gentlemen, which means that it is time for more rides and more fair excitement. You've got a giant pumpkin that you gotta go see. What? Oh, buddy. It is 2,000 pounds and it's gonna blow your mind. With our stomachs filled to the brim, it was time to push our limits once again on the tower drop and the gravity rod. Needless to say, this right here is not doing Santi's stomach any favors. So it's feeling pretty good. Santi, though, I guess no amount of refreshing candied grapes was going to outweigh the mac and cheese bacon sundae. In case it wasn't clear what substituted for the ice cream in that quote-unquote sundae, potato, barely cooked potato. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty funny how much he was struggling here, because this was an episode that he himself pitched. But anyway, with that conclusion, we were able to find a nice quiet spot for our final round of food. Second round of rides, a bit rougher for Santi.
That was not good.
You were this close. I was watching you. You were doubled over in pain. It was so much fun for me just to ride the ride, but it was made extra special by getting to watch you utterly hate every minute of it. While we were out, the
Just
rest of the
waiting
team
for
was out
glue to
scavenging the
dry.
remainder of the fair,
Do-do-do.
and we're able to
Exciting,
find
I know.
4 other odd, interesting foods. We've got ourselves this beauty right here, the dill pickle donut. Because pickles so far have worked well. We've got a turkey leg
I have
that is
heartburn.
the entirety of a Thanksgiving meal all in one package. This is a mystery rod, chicken, bacon, ranch, waffle on a stick. You couldn't have any more adjectives in there. It's great. And then last, but in this case we can start with, this is the Big Mac egg roll. I did not expect it to be just a big old pocket of meat.
The most normal thing we've had today.
Yeah, 6.5, 7, I think it's about right. Next up, portability.
I mean, it's easy to walk around. It's a little greasy, I guess. I mean, it's not going to fall apart on you at all. It's very compact. I'm going to give it a 9.
No. And lastly, is that going to make you sick on a ride?
Probably.
Yeah.
Oh, hello, Brazil. How are you doing tonight?
But I definitely think this would help.
This is, again, one of those, like, classic fair foods where it's fried, it's heavy,
Oopsie.
it's full of flavor, but it's also going to be sitting in your stomach
Uh-oh.
for a while.
I'm going to give it a very low 3. 2.
I would say
The Ferrero Rocher chocolate bar. Crunchy hazelnuts.
What's with the
smooth
crown
chocolate,
and the number
creamy
1 and the
filling.
number 2? Does anybody know?
Make any moment worth celebrating. Ferrero Rocher.
I would say it's not that bad. I would say this is probably going to be like a 4.5. 4.5 right there. So across the board, solid. Don't recommend riding a whole lot of stuff afterwards. Next up, we got chicken waffle on a stick covered with bacon and ranch sauce. Oh yes. I am hopeful about this. Oh man, Sanjay likes it so much he's dancing.
Savory wise, I think this has been my favorite so far. But I'm going to give it a 9.
This is a flavor combination all in one stick that is risky, and this is either a big win or a big loss, and this is a big win. So I'm gonna go 9 there. Portability.
I'll give
I
it
should have cut
a
the sticks
6 because you're losing
a
a
little
lot of
shorter, but I didn't.
It is on a stick. I'll give it a 6, 6.5.
I would agree. You're losing of the special bacon on top, so I think that makes sense. Lastly, are you gonna be back in the road with 10?
I would give this like a 7 because it isn't the lightest thing, but it's definitely not going to make you go up. It feels like a compact meal. Like it's perfect.
Yeah.
2 solid starts.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Not bad.
Who would have thought?
Oh, Big Blue. All right. We need to go over there. Oh, you smell so good.
For bringing me along to my first day. This was a really unforgettable experience, for better or for worse.
I'm thankful to share this experience with both of you. Well, that's so nice.
Yeah, fine. Everybody else. I thought it was a you and me thing here.
I am VOPNG YouTuber Matt Pat. I don't go out in public and do this, but it's nice. It's nice to be able to hang out with the team.
So, my question to you.
So anyway,
forget about that. That's enough of that. Should we use the fork? Oh, yeah. Don't fork. Oh, no! I'm gonna...
I guess I'll follow Santi's lead. and eat it in the worst way possible.
Yeah, there you go. Like a Greek god just being fed grapes. Tell me that's not delicious.
It is.
So there was very little risk taking in the flavors, but because of that, it is the most cohesive thing that we've had today.
Yeah.
Everything just goes together.
I think that's a fair statement. Yeah, it is the single most cohesive, broadest item that we've had, but we know it's a tried and true formula that's absolutely going to work.
Right.
So in terms of taste,
Oh man, this is really good. I think this will be my second 10 of the day.
wow,
Yeah.
7-10.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's really good.
It's really solid. I mean, it's Thanksgiving dinner at the fair, right? So I would say 9. It's not quite there, whereas the grapes surprised me, which I give a little bonus point to. But I mean, definitely top tier. Super solid. When it comes to portability, you know, we've already alluded to it. 0. Even if you wanted to lift it up by the moment, it's falling apart. This thing is a mess.
Yeah.
This is one of those dishes that requires you to find like the one lone picnic table that was just abandoned by someone, or a nice quiet spot by the lake with your best co-worker, friend, co-host. Neutral bro fist.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. And lastly, is this one gonna be up-chucking on the Gravitron?
As long as you're not eating the whole thing, I think this would be like a 9.
Yeah.
This would pass.
Our final item of the day, at least that we're trying on camera, this dill pickle donut. Here we go. For the road.
Okay. Where are my teeth?
That's not a donut.
Where are my teeth?
I need to lay back and
Horns,
think about this for a second.
fangs.
This is not nearly as
I'm gonna have to order more.
The texture of it is so good. Not overwhelming at all. It's just very pleasant sweetbread. So, across the board, dill pickle donut. Shocking.
Yeah.
Shockingly good. So, when it comes to taste,
I'm just eating it from the bottom. It's so good.
mhm.
So I'm gonna give this an 8.
Yeah, I think I gotta dock it a little bit for the top, which isn't doing anything for me, so I'm gonna knock it down to a 7. But still, solid performer. And I love the donut. Portability.
I mean, you gotta give it a 10. Like, it doesn't fall apart. It all sticks together. You can eat it with one hand. It's not falling over itself.
I'm gonna say, yeah, I would actually agree with 10. There's no stickiness to it. There's no greasiness to it. It is all super well held together. It's nice, compact, tight. It's really solid. Lastly, when it comes to the roller coaster test, am I picking this one up?
Absolutely not. I'm gonna give this a 10.
Yeah, this is absorbing everything in your stomach. Right now, this is literally a sponge for all the grease that I have from that Big Mac egg roll and everything else that we've had today. Like, this is a beautiful sponge that's really kind of neutralizing everything that came before. That really kind of brings us to the end of our fair experience. I went into this episode excited, but also like knowing that this is going to be good. But I think what this has shown me is that it pays to try new things, because at the end of the day, you might discover a new flavor profile, unlike anything you've ever had before, and something that you might be a newfound favorite. But hey, that's just a theory. A food theory.
And somewhere.
Oh, it's so cute. We also said goodbye too early because we still have to dive in and decide which fair foods are going to come out on top. Now, we ate our way through too many dishes here to look at them individually, and some were obviously better than others, so we're just going to be taking a look
Jackalopes
at
come
our top
together.
3 contenders in the flavor and barfability categories. The sushi on a stick from round 1, the candied grapes from round 2, and the Thanksgiving turkey leg from round 3. Although the turkey leg got itself the impressively bad and only 0 in the portability category in the entire competition, the strong showing in the other 2 categories catapulted it to the top over the likes of a donut burger, donuts with hot sauce, and literal venomous snake. To start off with our round 1 winner by a large peanut butter margin, the sushi roll. This deep fried barbecue coated spam roll was the highlight of my breakfast. A sentence I hope I don't have to repeat anytime before I die. Flavor wise, it was firing on all cylinders, and we may have been a bit biased considering the weak start that we had right before, but it was really something that everyone here enjoyed. So why then is this one not our clear-cut winner? Well, sure, rice and meat are fairly good for the stomach on the surface, and tempura batter is a better alternative than most other deep-fried batters since it uses less oil. Unfortunately, the dish was still fried, and fried foods are heavy in your stomach. And then you coat that with barbecue sauce, it is a recipe for chucking disaster. The high amount of fat in the deep frying process slows down the stomach, making you feel bloated, even nauseous, especially when you're on rides with questionable safety mechanisms. And then couple that with the high sugar content of the barbecue sauce, which can also lead to increased gas production and bloating, and suddenly the healthy components of this dish are canceled out. The other reason why this early favorite comes up a little bit
bit short is because of the spicy mayo. Hot sauce is a stomach irritant. Mayonnaise is, once again, high in fat, putting the final nail in this delicious coffin. Which leads us then to round two's winner, the candied grapes. Now, despite candied grapes being far and away one of our favorite flavors and textures of the day, fortunately science doesn't agree with us when it comes to crowning these bad boys the fairest of them all. At first glance, grapes seem harmless. Like I mentioned during the tasting, they're mainly water and packed vitamins and minerals. They're also rich in fiber, so we assume that they wouldn't do anything to upset our stomachs, and if anything, would keep us regular as we stroll through the fair. Unfortunately, grapes are high in fructose, natural sugar that causes gas, which sure seems like more of a problem for the people waiting in line behind you at the rides, but they also contain a lot of tannins. Tannins are naturally occurring chemicals that are found in a grape's skin, seeds, and stems, acting as a defense mechanism against animals and insects. Grapes and other plants have tannins, which are quite bitter, deter things from eating the fruit or seeds before they're ripe. Now, if low balance, tannins can give a pleasant complexity to a fruit, things like teas, coffees, and wines all make good use of them. However, there's still a natural defense mechanism. The such cause an excessive release of digestive enzymes in our bodies, which can not only give you nausea, but also diarrhea. I don't know about you, but worrying about barfing is bad enough at the fair. We'll need to think about it coming out the other end as well. Especially at the fair where the bathroom situation is sketchy at best, either extremely packed or not compared to a porta potty. So for that reason, we were left with the Thanksgiving turkey leg. Now, don't get me wrong, this guy is not just the overall winner by default. You see, breaking the dish down into its three major components, the turkey, the sweet potato, and the cranberry sauce, we actually have ourselves a lean protein in turkey helps promote gut health because it helps to maintain a balance of good and bad bacteria in your stomach. Speaking of that stomach, digesting fat is a pretty big chore. It can lead to that super full...
My God, you remind me of Ghetto. I might have to keep you for a bit.
Avoid vomiting on your next tilt walk. Turkey happens to be one of the leanest protein choices you're going to get at the fair, so this is going to be one of the smartest choices that you can make, as long as you're avoiding the skin, which tends to have a lot more fat content. Sweet potatoes are arguably the most important element here. You see, part of the reason you get queasy on rides when you go up, down, and all around is because your body's adrenaline release actually causes increased gastric acid production. All that sloshing around, and suddenly, you get the picture. Carbs like sweet potatoes aid in soaking up that extra acid, keeping your gut balanced and everything inside. Sweet potatoes are also the double whammy of being a fast-digesting carbohydrate, so it's less of a load on your vulnerable stomach. The final ingredient, the cranberry sauce, is not normally the best choice because cranberries have themselves a fairly high acid content, but that same acid is going to help speed up the digestion of turkey so that you don't feel overwhelmingly full.
Donkeys! Exclamation mark. LOL, the picture's through. Exclamation mark. Glad you're having at least somewhat of a good time.
So, there you have it, friends. We did it, so you don't have to. We ventured into the unknown. We tried all the scariest fair foods, putting our stomachs through an adventure that we won't soon forget, so that we could find the best fair that'll keep you full and keep you from emptying it all out at once. The next time you find yourself in an amusement park or fair,
Alright, I think I'm done for the night. That's a lot. I've gotten a few things done. Oh my God, I really like this rabbit. It's just fluffy enough, just colorful enough.
Because of today's sponsor, AG1. He's a little late to the game, but I make sure to drink AG1 every morning to help support my digestion and alleviate some of the
Don't care, Matt. Alright. Alright, I think that's it. I'm done. My goodness, look how cute you are. I'm trying to remember if I gave myself a fucking enema last night. Alright, so I got that one done. He's fixed up. These 4 are done. Those 4, 5, 6 are done. Those 2 are finally done, and that one's done. So they're smaller items, but they're still items, and that's all that counts. Alright, thanks for stopping by. Y'all have a good night.